Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past, it is our current reality. Be informed, be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everybody, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, for more information on racism, white supremacy, and to invest in my counter-racist efforts, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
And are you having a hard time with Star as well?
I think everybody has a hard time with Star.
Mm-hmm. She's tough.
I really do.
She's a tough one, right?
She really is. It's you know.
Is it tough or is it mean? What is it?
Okay. I don't want to say anything really bad.
No, just say something sort of bad.
Okay, what do you think it might be? What do you think it might be?
Well, she seems. I don't like to judge because I don't know.
Right,
I'm not with
you
her.
Don't know.
But she seems very, very tough.
In all fairness, yes. Absolutely.
Well, don't just agree with me. Is she mean or is she tough?
Okay, she's mean.
Okay. She's mean.
Mean.
All right.
And I mean mean.
Yeah.
Because I always say, if I had lost that much weight, I would be so happy and pleased with myself. No, really, I would be.
thinking when Nene was going off like that?
I was thinking my grandmother is going to watch this. Star, if you don't stand in the space that you were raised in, and if you start acting ghetto, your entire family, every teacher you ever had, your pastor, his wife, and they mama gonna have a big problem with you. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking I need to keep calm because not for nothing, Ellen, but when you're confronted in the wild with an uncaged animal, you're supposed to retreat.
Over 72% of them been stopped and frisked by the police.
And who fought that? We did.
You fought it.
But how come? Where were the academics? Where were the congressional
President Obama can't say a mumbling word about it when it comes to New York?
How come the critics
don't say a word about it when it comes to New York?
And neither have the
If investment bankers were stopped and frisked, he'd say something.
All right. Obviously, a lot of the
president of these Ivy League colleges that said we've been stopped and frisked, they'd be doing that. These guys are great at being
we've got to go.
And won't talk to nobody else.
Thank you, Velma Hart. Thank you, Robert Cranham. Thank you, Cornel West. And after this break, education in America. That's next on A Stronger America, the Black Agenda. Stay with us.
Context of white supremacy. Gus T Renegade. Justice in for another program, hopefully to share constructive information on racism, white supremacy, and why white people continue to be the champion terrorists in the known universe. Quick word before we begin. There was a program scheduled for yesterday. That would be Saturday, August 20th. I had to reschedule the program, and I'm actually proud to explain why I had to reschedule the program, and even being codification, being proud of things that you do, right? I was on my assignment. The reason the program had to be rescheduled because the victim and guest was scheduled to be on the program. Prince Justice, black male. He's an author who's written several books and essays on racism, white supremacy. We had scheduled our broadcast about a month ago, and really excited about the program, reading his book and sharing his views. And he was supposed to be back in the United Kingdom at the time of the program. That's where he was born. That's where he resides. And it turns out that didn't happen. It turns out that he ended up being in Nigeria, even when it came time for the program, and that kind of threw a monkey wrench in things. As I've said, if you want a really ugly form of racism, white supremacy, white people have made it extraordinarily expensive to dial the continent of Africa, much more expensive than, hosts of other areas where you don't have as many black people. Like, I can call Australia for free on my Skype package. I can call pretty much any of the countries that have a red, white, and blue color scheme. I can call for free. Continent of Africa, they charge you like astronomically to call the continent of Africa anywhere. So we're trying to work that out and figure out if it would be best to do the program now or to wait until he gets back to the UK. We were able to speak on Skype, and it worked beautifully. We're going to do the program on Skype while he is still in Nigeria, and we just rescheduled it, and it'll be next Sunday. So that'll be Sunday, August 28th. Sunday, August 28th, Prince Justice. He'll be joining us live from Nigeria, which I think is fitting. I'm really excited to have a black male on the program during the blackout from the continent of Africa next Sunday. Tune in, should be great. And he was actually born in the United Kingdom, so he has been following the so-called riots closely. So he should have some input on that as well. 2011 blackout. We've had black people from all over on the program, and it should be continuing. We also will have another black male from the United Kingdom who resides in the United Kingdom. He'll be on the program the following week. People have been posting some of his videos on the Facebook page for the C.O.W.S. Actually, I'll go ahead. Nabil Abdul Rashid. Nabil Abdul Rashid, black male, and he put up some videos responding to what I believe to be blatant, explicit white supremacy by Mr. David Sharkey, white man in the UK. Mr. Rashid made some videos responding to the racism, white supremacy, and we will have his views. So tune in. The 2011 blackout continues. Black people from all over the world sharing their views on white supremacy. With that, our guest joining us again. Again, she has been one of our best supporters, consistent listener. She has invested her time to come and share her views repeatedly. Folks have consistently said she's one of their favorite guests. Always enjoy hearing from her. She's just been super helpful in maintaining the program. Always a treat to have her on the program to exchange views on racism, white supremacy. She is co-author of 2 separate books. First one we discussed repeatedly, Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation. Second book, most recent work, Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. You can get both books. The address, TrojanHorse1.com. TrojanHorse1.com. You can check the website. You can get information on how to purchase the books, additional information about the authors. Excellent material, very constructive. Please visit and get more information, TrojanHorse1.com. And in fact, I have been, I've been seeing black people, males and females, wearing the Black Love is a Revolutionary Act t-shirt. As I said, saw a incredibly gorgeous black female without chemically mutilated hair wearing one of the Black Love is a Revolutionary Act t-shirts. The message is spreading. Joining us live, Pam. Pam, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Good evening. Good to hear from you.
Oh, same here. I wish I'd seen the people with the T-shirts.
The Facebook page. Check out. Check out the Facebook page. I know. I saw them on my Facebook page. I didn't even have to go far.
Okay. All right. Good.
Groovin'.
I would like that message to spread. That needs to be the first revolution that we have. And that's loving each other.
I typed out and chatted out what we were supposed to be dialoguing about, but before we hop into the subject matter, is anything you would like to share with listeners or anything you want to offer up before we get started?
Well, the show, we were talking about validation, and it's, a lot of times validation is not really seen as the broad concept that it is. At least it wasn't for me. And so what I hope we can do tonight is show the importance of validation and how systematically black people are invalidated every single area of human activity, all 9 areas that Neely Fuller and Dr. Welsing talk about. We are invalidated in those areas. So no, that's all I wanted to share, is that hopefully, we'll be able to help each other see a much broader picture of how important validation and invalidation is. But I'm ready to get started. Yeah, so.
Right on. I guess definitions, terms, very important. We talked about that, the concept of validation. I guess you want to share your meaning, your concept of the term valid or validation?
Sure. Okay. This is kind of like a brief definition, is to acknowledge and respect someone's unique identity and individuality. And when we validate someone, we treat them, their person, and their feelings as though they have value. And on the flip side, to invalidate someone is to reject, ignore, or negatively judge someone's value, feelings, identity, and humanity. And what is happening with black people in every area of human activity is, rather than being acknowledged as fully human and a person of value, we experience just the opposite.
All areas of people activity, I would agree. Someone just posted my Facebook. People just post there all the time. I'm not going to say everything is constructive, but people do post pretty frequently, and I would say most of the material tends to be constructive. Someone posted from the film Falling Down, came out in the 90s, and there's a real, it beautifully I should have sound clipped it. I was talking about it. I don't know why I didn't sound clip it. There's a black male standing out in front of a bank, all 9 areas of people activity, economics. He's standing out in front of a bank, and he has a sign on, and he says, I tried to get a loan. I was trying to get a business, trying to do the correct thing, be a so-called American citizen. And they told me that I am not economically viable. And he's just outside with his little sign on, not economically viable. And, of course, they call the enforcement officers and they arrest him and drag him away. That's what happens when you're not economically viable, validated in the system of white supremacy. You end up generally in greater confinement, further mistreated. But, yeah, I totally agree. I think the evidence is overwhelming. All areas, education, economics, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Non-white people are totally invalid. I guess you want to give any further details just to really drive that home, make sure we're very clear what we mean when we say non-white people and black people especially invalidated all areas of people activity?
Sure. One thing is any people... part of that, in my opinion, part of the invalidation of black people is that we've been programmed to do a lot of the work, or at least to add some fuel to the fire ourselves. Basically, like you were saying, the areas of human activity, the false beauty standards, the words that are used to describe non-whites versus whites. The words that are used to describe whites generally uplift humanity. Mom and apple pie, taxpayer. All the basic fundamental words that describe people of value generally describe, automatically white people are assumed to be the subject of conversation. Words that devalue non-whites, in particular black people, like the underclass. You're so low, you don't even have a class. You're not upper, you're not middle, you're not lower. You're underclass. So third world, they've even got a term fourth and fifth world now. So you're not even part of the first world, which is considered white people. And I think Japanese people might be included in that, but I'm not sure. Then you got the second world. So what is that really saying, that on the planet you're a third world person? Well, what does that mean? So the educational system, from the time that we are old enough to sit up straight or lean against a couch because somebody propped us there and focus our eyes, we are invalidated through the TV set. It's almost like a neutron bomb that doesn't destroy the TV, just destroys your head and destroys the brain. The entertainment industry, look at the black people's, look at our images, buffoons and clowns and criminals and crooked cops and drug dealers and gangbangers and whores and pimps and prostitutes and sexual degenerates, homosexuals, transvestites, on and on. Even the sexual aspect, a normal part of every human, even animal kingdom, is allowed to have sex with more dignity than black people. Our sexuality is seen as perverted and twisted, or at least that's the way it's portrayed. And a normal sexual expression between a black male and female is prohibited on television. When you look at the movies that are promoted with black people in them, if in that rare occasion a black man and woman are actually a couple, they don't have any sexual activity, not on screen. But if they're doing something perverted, like raping children, having sex with their daughter, or sex with white people, even then the sexuality is perverted and degraded. You know, it's always something trashy going on where black people's sexuality is concerned. So even our sex, the thing that every human being on the planet participates in, is something that invalidates black people as human beings. It's the political spectrum. You know, here we've got black people that have supposedly risen to the top levels of government, and they still don't get respected. I mean, it doesn't matter about the title. They not do any respect. The religion, and sex. Well, we talked about sex. Just anything that you can think of, and we can get into more detail as the show goes on. But there is no area of human activity that is untouched by the attempt, and the successful attempt, unfortunately, to make black people appear to be less than human, or at least not worthy of respect. At the very least, we're not people who are worthy of being respected.
Context of white supremacy. I would say if you've been listening to this broadcast over the past few weeks, we've been spending a lot of time covering the so-called riots in the UK. I would say that entire campaign has been an exercise in invalidating black people. They even got a new post. Creasy posted on my Facebook page. They are deporting non-white people, the looters. They just called them jungle bunnies too. They just been name calling left and right, invalidating these folks and saying that we're deporting anybody. If you are not a so-called citizen of the UK, you are getting out of here if you participated in these so-called riots. Wow. I guess, and I didn't want people to miss, because I thought that was really important, how this invalidation, it's in the language that racist man and racist woman have crafted to exchange information about their system and refine their code. And just in the one of the main words that I harp on consistently on their program really gets to the crux of it. Valid is a synonym for fair. I had some other terms, but I'll just scratch those. Hopefully, we can just make that quick. It's in the core of their language, is about invalidating anyone who is not white. Valid is fair. White. Everything else, reject pile. At any rate, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I remember when I was younger, I used to read novels. You know, I read anything. I read cereal boxes. And, you know, my mother and father had a lot of books laying around, you know, novels or whatever. And I remember reading stories, and the people who were described as attractive were said to have regular features. And regular always meant white, you know, features that white people had. So even the word regular, fair, all of that's almost synonymous. Regular, or, you know, normal, desirable, you know. So it's really interesting how even the word regular, when describing people's features, means white people.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I would just, you know, to make sure we keep that connection, I would say, unfortunately, they have equated white with normal. Victims, you should have in mind, they have equated normal with racist. Racist, white, normal. Put equal all of them the same. Unfortunately, I have concluded those are the parameters we're working with. That's the way racist man and racist woman are thinking. Like many white people, I think, have come on this program and they've said they just assume if you're white, you're racist. I guess, can you just give a little bit, because I had that in the description. We're supposed to be addressing ways that we can bolster self-respect from this. It's really a psychological warfare to really warp your self-esteem and self-respect and how you feel about yourself and other black people, other non-white people. I guess before we get to that aspect, I guess can you touch on just your observation, the impact that this had, this all areas of people activity campaign of invalidating non-white people, the impact that has on black people?
Sure. I can start with some of the things that, some of the notes that I had. For example, the beauty standards. Anytime you can get someone to look in the mirror and dislike that person in the mirror, everything else is a cakewalk. And so from the time that we're small, look at the black doll, white doll experiment. Even as the early age of 3 or 4 years old, I think the youngest child might have been about 4, they know that being brown is bad. So how do you build your validation, self-validation, your self-esteem on that foundation? You can't do it. And the troubling thing is, and Cree actually said this, I believe, in the book review she did on our book, Black Love is the Revolutionary Act. And I would suggest that everybody read Cree's review because I got something out of it. And I actually read the book, so and helped write the book. But she was saying that she did not understand how a black person, could actually say out loud, talk about good hair and talk about white features in such a way as though to negate themselves. Now, I don't remember her exact words, but basically, how do you even let that language come out of your mouth? If something is good hair and you've got something different on your head, how do you even if you're thinking it, how does it come out of your mouth? What are you thinking when you say that? That's the self. I don't care if you're talking about another person, you're still invalidating yourself. But this doesn't mean we're stupid or bad. It means that we've been the victims of a programming that began when we were small children. And what I would like to see us do is be mindful of the kind of language you use around your children. Stop talking about pretty eyes and nice skin and good hair. And especially, I think about a child who is listening to their brown-skinned parent talk about the beauty of something that doesn't reflect that parent. If the parent is showing the child that they don't even like themselves, where does your child get their self-esteem from if you don't even like yourself? So a lot of our problem, in my opinion, with the invalidation comes from that person in the mirror. What do you see when you look in the mirror? And it's not normal to see ugliness. I don't care what you look like. You can have 3 eyes. If everybody in your community has 3 eyes, there's no way in the world you should look in that mirror and see 3 eyes as abnormal or ugly. But what we've been taught is to look in the mirror and see ourselves and the people who look just like us as less than desirable. So that's one thing I think that is totally devastating to black people is this false beauty standard. And it is false because there's no way in the world 10% of the world's population can be the standard for 90%. That just doesn't happen. That 10% is actually, if you want to talk about not being the standard, they're actually the non-standard on the planet. So how can they be superior when they're the non-standard? The words, like you were saying, the words are really important. And most of the words that refer to non-white people are negative words. Ghetto, underclass, urban, inner city, natives, tribes. I mean, just burial. I mean, just the words that we use. And one thing that's troubling is the words that we use against ourselves, like nigger. Somehow nigger has become a value statement. Somehow nigger has become a definition of black people. How does that happen? Well, it happens through the system of white supremacy. So I've been trying to work on on not using the word. And I have to ask myself, when I use the word, what am I really feeling? I mean, am I feeling anger? And then who am I angry at? Am I feeling self-contempt? Am I just saying things that I've been taught to say? And how does it make me feel? And I've actually been asking myself that. Why do I feel a sense of satisfaction in degrading other black people? Why do I feel a certain twisted sense of satisfaction in calling black people niggas? What is it that's inside of me that I need to really look at. The educational system, the same thing. I mean, kids get an overdose of white supremacy. And I would strongly advise black people, don't send your kids to predominantly white schools because they're getting more than they're learning more than reading and writing. They're learning about how to feel inferior. There's a story in Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation. It's called Our Children Are Watching. And it was a story about a segregated prom, I believe, in Georgia, and how the black students were in this integrated school, but they had separate proms, and how upset the black students were. They didn't see it necessarily as the white people being racist. They saw it they were being deprived of being with white people. They wanted to know why they couldn't be at the same prom as their white friends, rather than rejecting the idea that they could have white friends. They wanted to be with these people. And what some of them did, a small group did, they went and stood outside the door of the white prom, the place where the white prom was being held, a place they were not allowed to enter, so they could stand there and cheer their white classmates as they marched into the prom. When they had the black prom, the white students were welcome there. I don't know if any showed up. But certainly these friends that they had, these white friends, didn't show up to cheer them as they walked into the black prom. This is what our children are learning. They're learning that white people are the validators, and they learn that best when they go to these predominantly white schools where they are getting an overdose of white supremacy. And if they're not allowing these black children to go to a prom together, they're mistreating them through the school year. So, education. Did you want to break in somewhere?
Oh, you're good. Rock and roll. You're good. They didn't really tune in to hear me. They tuned in to hear Pam.
Yeah, he can't hear you. Okay, the entertainment industry, that's a huge invalidator. Look at young people. They're literally being raised by the television set. They're getting their identity from the television set. You can tell from all the tattoos. I mean, would they be having all these tattoos if they hadn't seen somebody on television wearing them? I really doubt it. The clothing styles, the language. You got these reality shows now that are pretending to show reality. They're nothing, in my opinion, they're just staged and scripted. But now you've got people writing articles on the Internet talking about these reality shows like these people's lives are really true, like they're really getting a glimpse into the lives of these people, judging relationships based on the relationships they see in reality shows. So television is a really dangerous instrument, and you can tell from the way that black people are relating to each other that it's affecting our relationships. Interracial sex is another invalidator, in my opinion, because most of us, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, most of the black people I know that have been in interracial relationships, they've done it for the wrong reasons. I believe a lot of times it happens because the white people want it to happen. And we are so used to obeying white people that we might feel compelled to even please them when it comes to the sexual arena. I remember something that was said in this book called Pieces of a Puzzle. I highly recommend it, by Renethia Tate. And you can get it on Amazon. And she did a series of interviews. It was basically exposing the secret sexual relationships between black females and white males, the things that black women don't want to talk about. And she interviewed a lot of white males and she interviewed black females. And she asked this one white male, I'll never forget it, she asked this one white male, why do you think black women agree to this sexual, to have sex with white men? He said, and he said, basically, because they're afraid to say no. Now, that's a strange thing for a man to say if these relationships or sexual liaisons are colorblind. I mean, that's him admitting that he has power just in the fact that he is a white person. And I suspect that a lot of black males and black females feel compelled to appease and please white people, even when it goes as far as sexually. So this interracial sex, one thing that to me proves it is invalidating is black people making all these excuses for doing it and blaming other black people for being sexually involved with white people. Why do you have to blame somebody if this behavior is self-respecting and correct? You don't have to blame anybody. You just do it. But a lot of times you ask people, and they'll say, well, I'm doing it because black men ain't, or I'm doing this because black women ain't. Well, aren't you a black person? So if you're putting black people down, by saying that this is the reason you must date outside your race, what are you saying about yourself? And when people say love is colorblind, well, considering some of the white people we wind up with, I'm beginning to believe them, that somebody is blind. You might not be colorblind, but you are blind, because we hook up with people with the most unbalanced facial features and physical bodies on the planet, features that would be unacceptable in a black person of the opposite sex. So maybe there's something to be said about being blind. Maybe they're not kidding. Maybe they really are blind. I just think that it's a problem when you hook up with somebody white in a white supremacy system because they're white and base it on the inferiority of other black people, forgetting that you are talking about yourself. That in and of itself is invalidation. I've even had people say, well, they wanted to be with a white person because they wanted their kids to be lighter, and have good hair. And I'm thinking, like, okay, fine. But what about you? You don't look like that. So, again, it's invalidation. Seeking to have so-called biracial children is self-invalidation. Normal people want children that look like themselves. That's just my opinion. So I think when you don't want your kids to look like you, that goes back to that person in the mirror. I just have two more examples. The political system, these showcase blacks, we use them to make ourselves feel important, to feel like we belong, to feel like we've made strides, that black people are rising up in the halls of power, even while the masses of black people are being abused, murdered, imprisoned, exploited, cheated, 24/7. We somehow have looked at these handful of showcase blacks and have taken that as progress. Well, that is invalidating because that's not true. And I think Mr. Fuller said the height of self-disrespect, which is a form of self-invalidation, is to lie to yourself. These white people create these showcase blacks, and we embrace this lie. But one thing I will say is, if we understand anything about the system of white supremacy, we know there is no way in the world that any black man, no matter how charming or intelligent he is, will ever have more power than the lowest status white man in a white supremacy system. And, they gave us some proof. The proof, in my opinion, was that racist white policemen who arrested and handcuffed black Harvard law professor, black Harvard Professor Gates in his own home. And this white man, this civil servant, got an apology from the President of the United States. And he was rewarded with a free trip, and a photo op to the White House to have a beer with the President. Now, this civil servant was able to get the President of the United States to apologize. Yet we think that a black man in a white supremacy system has power. To me, it seems that the white civil servant, that white male, had more power, had more status in that situation, because he never apologized, as far as I know, to the professor for arresting him. So look at the insults. Look at how the Obamas are talked about. And whether you like them or not, I guess is beside the point. It's still proof that even despite his title and her title, they are still the target of tar baby jokes and pictures, and Obama's an ape, and talking about he's not a citizen, his birth certificate is invalid, on and on, pictures of an ape shot full of holes with Obama's name above it. All of this is a form of invalidation of people. It's saying to me basically that no matter what your title is, you still are not worthy of respect. The last thing I would say is the false religions. I don't see what can be more dangerous psychologically than practicing the same religion and worshiping the same God that the slave owners taught us to worship. I can't think of anything more self-invalidating than that. They didn't teach us about the God that we had in Africa. Now, this is my own personal belief, and some people might disagree. But the God that we had in Africa, in my opinion, was the one who loved us, the one who wanted us to be free. They didn't teach us about a God like that. They taught us about a God that taught us it was normal and acceptable to be enslaved. They taught us to believe in white supremacy via a blind, blue-eyed Jesus. Taught us to turn the other cheek while they beat the hell out of us. Taught us to wait until we died to reach heaven and receive the riches that they were getting right now. And so you have to ask yourself, and this is what Malcolm X said, and this is, to me, I really love this quote. He said, so you call the same God he calls for. When he's putting a rope around your neck, you call for God, and he calls for God. And you wonder why the one you call on never answers you. So what color God did our African ancestors worship? How could God's son have been a white man in ancient Africa before the European even existed? How could black and white people really be worshiping the same God if that same God allows a European to have a wicked domain over the non-white planet? So, in my opinion, the true religion, is based on everything I've seen, of white people is the religion of white supremacy. And we suspect this is true because everything else seems to be secondary to white supremacy. Whether they're a Christian, a Buddhism, practice Buddhism, Islam, whether they're a Mormon, a Baptist, a Methodist, an Episcopalian, a Catholic, Judaism, whatever, it seems like no religion on earth is practiced by white people with the 364, 24/7-hour dedication that white supremacy is practiced. So if white supremacy is their true religion, how could a non-white person worship the same God that white people worship without that non-white person supporting the practice of white supremacy? So it just seems that to follow the same religion that kept you enslaved, in some respects, is a form of self-invalidation, because something is wrong with the black community that has a church on every corner and hell in between. We got churches, more churches than businesses, and nothing has changed for us. So my opinion is we're not worshiping the right God. And I think that all of these things build a cornerstone of self-invalidation in black people, and it's a very dangerous psychological condition. And I will pause and take a breath, and Gus, please weigh in.
Co-author of Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation, and Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. Pam? Wow. I guess what I would say, I think black people, unfortunately, I think this is a big part of our victimization, mental illness. I mean, that's mental illness. We lie to ourselves a lot. I mean, a lot. And I mean, being on the plantation of white supremacy and dealing, being raped by white people and everything that we have to endure, have had to endure. I mean, it requires, a bit of repression and lying to oneself just to make it sometimes. We need to break that habit, like, as much as we possibly can, because I'm saying black people, we have a great tendency to lie to ourselves. Black people do not like black people. I could be wrong. That flat statement, my time on the planet, I can say that confidently. Black people do not like black people. And that, too, blame that on white people. That's what the precious and their psychological warfare 24/7, that's what that's all about. And I think we know this. Like, I don't think I'm saying anything that is profound or shocking. I think we're very aware of this. As long as I can remember, I have heard black people say, I'm not going outside, I don't want to get dark. I'm not going swimming, I don't want to get dark. I've been in Miami, black people say, I'm not going to the beach, don't want to get dark. I mean, that's just it's not even surprising to hear black people say that. Like, black people do not like black people as a result of white supremacy. And in my opinion, that plays right into the hand. That is exactly what white people want. That's why they invest so much in degrading the image of black people, whether it's degrading President Obama, whether it's Planet of the Apes and all these other films, The Precious and The Help, and For Colored Girls, all of their brain trashing on the television. That's why it is very important that black people have that, however you want to phrase it, but dislike of black people. It is very important that black people have that menticide. It's integral to maintaining white supremacy. And I guess I would just say I think that is one way that we go about getting that validation from white people. In fact, I was even looking at the term ape. Unfortunately, again, I think white people, they express a lot of their code directly in the way that they use words. And if you look at the verb definition for the term ape, to imitate the behavior or manner of someone or something, especially in an absurd or unthinking way. I'm going to read the definition one more time. This is the verb for ape. Verb definition for ape. Imitate the behavior or manner of someone or something, especially in an absurd or unthinking way. Unfortunately, I'm going to play this sound clip one more time just to make the point, because again, like I said, I think unfortunately black people, we do not like to acknowledge some truths that are very painful. And I think we are going to have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. So I'll say it again. Black people, for all of the black pride and I mean, the person who made the song Black and I'm Proud married a white person. I mean, it's embarrassing how obvious it is. Black people do not like black people. That, in my opinion, I mean, it is embarrassing how obvious this is to the whole world. To the whole world. And in my opinion, this is just imitating white people. I think that's one of the few things we've latched on to. Maybe some white people will be okay with me if I show that I really hate black people. Maybe they will think that I am special and somehow different from all the other niggers. That's one thing I think a few of us have at least caught on to that, and I see that demonstrated even in myself a ton. I'm going to play my sound clip one more time, and then if you want to share your thoughts, because I think this goes right into mental. And I think if you could, because you talked about it before, how you said you even felt yourself falling into that, getting some satisfaction out of mistreating other black people. I'm going to do the sound clip really quick, and then when it's done, feel free to hop in. It's like 3 minutes long sound clip. And this is reality shows, television. I think everything that we've touched on wrapped up in a nice little ball, 3 minutes. And this is why white people continue to keep their foot on our neck.
And are you having a hard time with Star as well?
I think everybody has a hard time with Star.
Mm-hmm. She's tough.
I really do.
She's a tough one, right?
She really is. It's you know.
Is it tough or is it mean? What is it?
Okay. I don't want to say anything really bad.
No, just say something sort of bad.
Okay, what do you think it might be? What do you think it might be?
Well, she seems. I don't like to judge because I don't know.
Right,
I'm not with her.
Don't know.
But she seems very, very tough.
In all fairness, yes. Absolutely.
Well, don't just agree with me. Is she mean or is she tough?
Okay, she's mean.
Okay. Yeah. You agree?
Mean.
All right.
And I mean mean.
Yeah.
Because I always say, if I had lost that much weight, I would be so happy and pleased with myself. No, really, I
would be. What were you thinking when Nene was going off like that?
I was thinking my grandmother is going to watch this. Star, if you don't stand in the space that you were raised in, and if you start acting ghetto, your entire family, every teacher you ever had, your pastor, his wife, and they mama gonna have a big problem with you. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking I need to keep calm because not for nothing, Ellen, but when you're confronted in the wild with an uncaged animal, you're supposed to retreat.
Over 72% of them been stopped and frisked by the police.
And who fought that? We did.
You fought it.
But how come? Where were the academics? Where were the congressional
President Obama can't say a mumbling word about it when it comes to New York?
How come the
he don't say a word about it when it comes to New York?
And neither have the
academics. If investment bankers were stopped and frisked, he'd say something.
All right. Obviously, a lot on the
table. Of these Ivy League colleges that said we've been stopping frisk, they'd be doing that. These guys are graded people.
We've got to go.
And won't talk to nobody else.
Thank you, Velma Hart. Thank you, Robert Freedom. Thank you, Cornel West. And after this break, education in America. That's next on A Stronger America, the Black Agenda. Stay with us.
Take it away, Pam.
Yeah, that's it's so typical. I mean, it's almost like a textbook that they follow, some kind of rule book they follow in the entertainment industry. Talking about, particularly describing black women in such unflattering terms, tough, mean, and then getting black women to attack each other, and then getting black men to attack other black men. And it's almost like, you look at it and you just think, are we seeing what's really going on? Or has it become so normalized and satisfying to please white people because we know on some level that we're trying to appease and appeal to white people. When I did it, I mean, I was never extreme, but if I said something negative about another black person to a white person, I could feel that positive energy flow, but I don't remember hearing white people say negative things about other white people to me. And I think listening to this show and actually thinking about it, I became more aware of the fact that it's black people that do most of the talking when it comes to talking about other black people. Black people will sit there and talk about another black person to a white person. And it is seldom, I don't even remember any time where a white person has defended that black person. But that same white person will not have that negative conversation to you about any white people unless it's a white person that's in power over them that's mistreated them. That might be the only time. A white boss that they don't like that did something, they might say something about them. But their coworkers and their peers, don't say anything about them. Very little. When you were saying that, we will degrade other black people, put other black people to appease or please or fit in with white people, it's almost like we're not paying attention because there's nothing that black people can say or do that somebody black hasn't said or done. Get a master's degree, makes no difference. Get a fancy title, makes no difference. You get rich, makes no difference. There is nothing new under the sun that black people could do that will make this thing change. I mean, in terms of getting white people to accept them as fully human. Black people have been trying for a very long time. But it's almost like you're programmed. I remember there was this really highly publicized Cape Cod murder trial in 2006 of this black male who was accused of raping and murdering this white female. And there was one black male on the jury. And later this white female juror reported that this black male juror told her that all his brother's wives were white, that he had always been around white people, and that he did not like blacks because look at what they are capable of. Now, this is a black male juror sitting in on a trial of another black male, and he says, look at what they are capable of. Now, had that same black male juror been on trial himself, he would have been faced with the same racism and the same type of thinking that he was probably guilty, but he couldn't see that. So even though he was saying these things to white people, he wasn't buying himself anything. He wasn't benefiting in any way. somebody told me, and I don't know if this is true, but they said that Gayle King, Oprah's pal, supposedly said, and I'm sure she said this to an audience if it was said at all, that if she asked somebody, she talked to somebody about the O.J. Simpson trial, a black person, and they say that O.J. Simpson was innocent, that's the last time she'll talk to them. Now, I don't know if that's true. Maybe I shouldn't be repeating it. But my point is that who was she really directing that comment at? White people, if indeed she said it. So you see it constantly where black people are really talking to white people. And sometimes we'll do it. We'll talk to white people and we'll say something we think white people want to hear. And it comes out so easily, it's almost unconscious until you stop and hear what you're saying. And for some strange reason, it's a satisfaction that comes from putting down another black person publicly or putting down another black person in front of a white person. And I would just say that goes back to the training that we've had for hundreds of years. And it's really been a survival training. It's the same reason that black people used to beat their children in front of the slave master as a way of saying, don't beat them anymore, I took care of it. So black people know that white people are dangerous, and they know we're afraid of white people. And so I think that's one reason we're constantly trying to appease them, is that we're trying to, say that, listen, I'm not going to be a problem. I'm with you. I mean, it's I don't even know how to describe it, but I think it's behavior that we need to start becoming conscious of. In the book Black Love, we have a chapter called Slave Traditions. And a lot of things that we do today are slave traditions. The religion that we practice is a slave tradition. The way we treat our children are slave traditions. The way that we talk about other black people are slave traditions. So a lot of things we do are things that come right out of slavery, the food we eat. What we call soul food a lot of times is food that we were forced to eat because it was that or go hungry. And now this food, this throwaway food, has become a delicacy that's killing us. So a lot of the things that we do are things that come out of slave tradition, even to the point of killing each other, mistreating each other, using ugly words against black people. It was something that I kind of thought of, and I was wondering if other people have ever heard this. I've never heard this. I tried to imagine, I've never heard a white person say, ain't that just like a cracker? I've never heard an Asian person say, ain't that just like a chink? I've never heard white people say after they had a romantic disappointment with another white person, that's why I don't deal with white people. Never heard a white person say, with your white ugly ass. I've never heard an Asian person say, anything like, with your Asian ugly self. I mean, you think about the things that we say, and it just flows off our tongue like water. And so I think it's really important that we start really listening to the words. Words are powerful. Appeasing and pleasing white people is a slave tradition. Slaves were forced to call other slaves niggas in front of white people when they were slaves. What are we doing today? I guess we're still slaves. Or at the very least, we're still slave-minded. I mean, reality is we're still on the plantation. Slavery never ended. We never got off the plantation. We're still on the plantation. But I think the only way we're going to get off the plantation is we got to start being honest about the fact that we're on the plantation. We got to start being honest about the fact that these showcase blacks don't represent progress. And we got to start being honest about our feelings about ourselves and each other. Because you can't cure a problem that you don't admit you have. And I think it's time for us to man and woman up and face the music and decide, either we're going to do this thing, we're going to correct this thing, or we're going to perish. And I don't mean to sound dramatic, but no people can continue down the road we're going on and survive. I just don't see it happening.
I agree. Again, the concept menticide, Dr. Bobby E. Wright. I would strongly encourage the book Psychopathic Racial Personality and Other Essays. Excellent read. And the concept menticide. He explains it in detail. White people need us to hate other black people. That is one of their have-tos, get black people to hate and just totally abhor and loathe other black people. The images that they have of Africa, I mean, they got a whole package around that. What to do's, codification, I have that in the description as well. What are things black people can do to insulate themselves from some of this damage, repair from some of this damage, be preemptive for younger people, younger black people and non-white people, to prevent this from occurring in the first place. I feel obligated to recognize Dr. Welsing's statement that you reference so often. She said self-respect is greater than a weapon of mass destruction, or she says self-respect is a weapon of mass destruction. Some strategies that black people can use to protect themselves, their self-esteem, self-respect.
Well, I wish there was easy answers, but the one thing that I would suggest is first thing we got to do is admit we have a problem. You can't go anywhere. You can't. I mean, there's no point in even getting started if you can't admit that you had a problem, and start looking at our own behavior and how we treat other people, other black people. We have to start with ourselves. And I would say in starting with ourselves, we have to acknowledge it's not going to be easy to undo 20, 25, 30, 35, 50, whatever years of programming. So I would say even while you're looking at yourself and trying to change your behavior, don't condemn yourself, because really we came into this system. We didn't create this system. This system was created around us. And it's not our fault that the system exists. And it's not our fault that we're programmed. Unfortunately, it is our responsibility to address that programming and do something about it. But I would say in no case should black people be blaming other black people for being messed up. I know it's easy to want to do that because I'm frustrated. You know, I'm sure we're all frustrated. I'm sure everybody listening to this program is frustrated with the condition of black people. But the problem is white people. And I think you have to really move away as much as humanly possible, because it's not possible to not be mad or get frustrated or get angry. But as much as humanly possible, try to bring ourselves back to the reality that this is a system that is victimizing us. We are not the victimizers. The system is victimizing us. So I think the first thing you have to realize is that we're victims, and that doesn't make you weak. It just means that you are being impacted by forces outside your control. The same way a rape victim is being impacted by the rapist. You don't blame the rape victim for being raped. So we've literally been psychologically raped, economically raped, physically raped, sexually raped. So I would say until we acknowledge that we live in a system of white supremacy, until we really look at the system, I say the second thing is acknowledge you're in a system of white supremacy and try your best to understand the system. And even when it makes you uncomfortable, accept the truth, because the truth's not going to change just because you don't like it. So get away from this thing of thinking that we can somehow assimilate and integrate and elevate ourselves into equality. You can't be equal in a system of white supremacy. That's what the system is all about, to make sure that we're not equal, to make sure we don't have equal opportunity, resources, or assets. So when they try to make it appear that some black person has risen to some level of acceptance, don't buy it, because it's not true. So I would say the third thing is stop lying to ourselves. Tell the truth, even if it's a painful truth. You're not responsible for this situation, but it serves no purpose to lie to ourselves about our situation. It serves no purpose to pretend that a man who came out of nowhere is in control of the country. It just doesn't make any sense. I ask black people all the time, well, this is an analogy I used recently. If a presidential candidate is created, who is that presidential candidate going to serve? What is that presidential candidate obligated to do? He's obligated to serve the people that created him. Just like a riverboat, a guy that builds a riverboat casino, he's not going to rig the game so the game goes against himself. He's going to rig the game so he wins most of the time. So I'm just saying a lot of people are very sensitive about what I just said. But lying to ourselves is just self-disrespectful. So it's time to start telling the truth, about our situation. And I think if we start telling the truth, we can start to see some of the Trojan horses that are being used against us. And this showcase black thing is a big one, So I would say, first of all, we got to admit that we have a problem. Second, we got to start looking at the person in the mirror and analyzing why we feel the way we feel and start trying to work on that. The third thing is learn everything you can about the system of racism, white supremacy. You got some brilliant people out there that talk about it, that have written about it, because you can't understand anything if you don't understand the system of white supremacy. Everything you think you understand will only confuse you. That comes straight from Neely Fuller, and I agree with that. Because all these different tricks they use to make black people think right is left and left is right and up is down and down is up, all this comes from us not understanding the system. The system works the same way every single time. It does the same thing over and over again that it's been doing for hundreds of years. And if you start to see the pattern, you'll see the tricks. You'll see more of the tricks that they pull. And I would say perhaps another thing would be to change the language that we use with our children, because they're the next generation, and they're being severely impacted by this media. And the only chance they have to come out sane is going to be us. It's going to be black adults. So we've got to watch the things we say to our children about other black people, watch the things that we say about other white people. I grew up in a family, nice people, but white identified. I mean, they thought white people was the bomb. And they didn't say it, but their behavior said it. The things that came out their mouths said it. They praised white people on TV. They praised white beauty. Now, I'm growing up as a brown-skinned child in a family that is probably a typical family that really kind of had elevated white people. Now, what chance do I have of growing up and not being psychologically devastated? And it's taken me this long just to deal with it. So we got to be real careful about not destroying the next generation, because the system is destroying them as we speak. So that would just be some suggestions. We have some suggestions in the book that might be helpful, like not participating in those things that damage or demonize black people. For example, the entertainment industry. Why are we spending our money to see ourselves degraded? Why are we sitting here watching the Norbit movies? I mean, are we that desperate for entertainment that it doesn't matter? I don't believe that. I think it's just that we don't understand that this entertainment is invalidating ourselves. The Norbits, the Tyler Perry sitcoms, a lot of this stuff is just plain black degradation. So the question is, why would we spend our money to do that? We need to be more aware or conscious of how we're spending our money. And that's just some suggestions I have. Stop supporting black degradation.
Stop supporting black degradation. I agree with that 1,000%. I think the more informed you become about racism, white supremacy, you will recognize when you see black people being mistreated, and it's constant. It's constant. You'll recognize it for what it is, and I think when you understand it, I think you will be motivated to oppose it in any way that you can. Sometimes that might mean just I won't support it. I'll make sure that I don't spend any money to go, if it's a film or something like that. I won't put any money behind it. I won't watch it. I won't allow my children or family members to watch it, or I'll speak out against it if I hear other people promoting this and saying this is something that we should watch or participate in. Sometimes it might even be more, depending on what your will and ability is. But I think definitely recognizing and opposing it as much as you can, and really call that out. I think I've plucked some people's nerves being aggravating with some of the video games and programs that I've seen where, to me, it's just blatantly anti-black. I think we talked about the video game Fluidity on this program, where the whole purpose of the game is to get rid of blackness. That's the whole purpose of the game. Like, get rid of the blackness. And to help white people in the process. In fact, that was a beautiful reminder. One and the same. You were talking about your family, and you said that they were very white identified. I was going to say, could we replace white identified with anti-black? Could we replace those terms, or could we swap those terms, and would it still be accurate to say that your family was very anti-black?
That's kind of hard because they didn't miss, they were nice people. We didn't miss, my family didn't mistreat black people. They had just elevated black people, white people above black people. I mean, in other words, if white people were around, that was a good thing. If they married into the family, that was a good thing. I have to think about that. Maybe I'm in denial. Anti-black, I guess to some degree. I think it's hard for me to say it, perhaps because I'm too close to it, but also because we weren't the type of people that like some people, they disrespectful to black people, say nasty, ugly things. My family wasn't like that. But the message did come across that white people were a benefit. They were a bonus. You were lucky to be with one. And that was my mother's side of the family, incidentally. It wasn't my father's side. But, when white people married to our family, wowee. And when those kids started popping out, whoop-de-doo, And so, I'm sitting here as a brown child, and I would highly, strongly suggest black people who have these marriages in their family be very aware of how you act and treat these children of these interracial marriages. Be very much on point about that, because those black kids are watching and listening, and they are feeling it. When you show preference, when you make a fuss, when you compliment features, those black children are absorbing that, and they are making a comparison between themselves and that other child. And generally speaking, it's going to be a negative comparison. So we got to stop being surprised when our kids grow up with self-esteem problems. We need to stop being surprised. That doesn't make any sense. Based on the stuff that we say and do around our kids, it makes no sense to be surprised that they have issues. Because I remember when I was a kid, and I was, I had this stuff around me, and I remember thinking, I think I was about 9 years old, and I told myself I would never have a child with a white man. Well, I didn't say it that way, but I would never have one of those children because I didn't want to make little black kids feel bad. And that was the thought I had. As I said, I did not want to have a child that other people made a fuss over because they looked that way. And I didn't want to have a child that other people make a fuss over in front of other black children. And I somehow, even at 9, I knew that that was incorrect. For me to bring children into the world that were going to be uplifted simply because they had white blood. I was still messed up, but even then I kind of knew deep down, I knew that was incorrect. And I would say be very careful if you're bringing your children around children of that kind of parentage. Please don't uplift those children. Don't make a fuss of those children. Treat them like children, like any other children. If your kids are watching, I think James Baldwin says something like, children may fail to listen, but they never fail to imitate you.
I was thinking on that question because I think that is in Trojan Horse, or I have one of the co-authors here. I thought, actually, before I even say that, thank you for sharing. I want to acknowledge, thank you for sharing, because I think that was touched on Friday, that a lot of times non-white people, we don't share things that are difficult, things that are personal, that happen to us or people that we care about. It's not the easiest to examine, how white people have victimized us and the people that we care about. Thank you for sharing. But I was going to say, I think in Trojan Horse, that you say it's really two sides of the same coin, being white identified and or being anti-black. It's really two sides of the same coin. And I was thinking that really it was a conversation with justice, where, and I'm purposely not giving the person's name out. If I gave the name out, it would it would make it much clearer because I could give more details about this, but I'm purposely doing that because I'm trying not to make it seem like I'm bashing on a victim. I'm just trying to extract the lesson. But I was speaking with Justice, and we were talking about a victim, and she said that, you know, this person is very anti-black. And I was like, whoa, wow, why would you say such a thing? And I didn't get to ask her about it at the time that she made the comment. It took some weeks before I was actually able to follow up and ask her why she made that statement. And when I did, she said, oh, and I mean, it was such a matter of fact, like, isn't it obvious? She was like, oh my gosh, they were defending white people and praising white people left. I mean, you heard them, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, I did. And I wanted to say something, like I wanted to be like, but, and I mean, it was nothing I could really say. I just had to like, yeah, and it was painful, even though it wasn't me. It was painful for me to have to say, yeah, that does make sense to say that this person is anti-black. Like, I think, I mean, just under these conditions, praising white people under these conditions, yeah, you put Gus down for saying, yes, that is very anti-black. Praising white people, elevating them, being happy that they are around, heaven forbid that they, you know, so-called marry into the family, being glad about that, that is, yeah, I would say extraordinary victimization, but I would say, yeah, that's pretty anti-black. I think that qualifies for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like, you know, being an abused woman, and I compare black people to the abused woman syndrome. I mean, you know, we could look at that situation, that example, and we could see clearly that it makes no sense, or I wouldn't say it makes no sense, but that there's a problem in that relationship, and that the woman is making, say, for example, as a woman, she's making excuses for somebody abusing her, and she's trying everything she can to please him, and he can't be pleased because the problem isn't her, it's him. And she thinks if she could just change something about herself, she could cook better, look better, walk better, talk better, have sex better, whatever, make the bed quicker, that she could change his ways, but she can't change his ways because the problem is him. And so it's kind of like black people trying to constantly appease white people is like that abused woman constantly trying to make this man love her. And as we see a lot of times it ends badly most of the time because you can't change an abuser. There's something fundamentally wrong with the abuser. So I would think if we could compare, look at that analogy, then we can understand just how hopeless it is to try to change an abuser, and how bizarre it appears to people looking from outside that relationship to see you trying to love somebody who's mistreating you. And really there's no difference. I mean, there's a difference, but the psychology is the same, and that is there's something wrong inside that victim's head that makes them want to lie to themselves that they somehow have an obligation to make this person love them. When in reality, the person is proven they're not worthy of love. The last thing you should be doing is trying to get their love. And I would say that to me is an analogy analogous to the system of white supremacy. There's no way in the world that we should be trying to get white people to love us. The only understandable part of that is we are so dependent on the system that we're afraid not to appease white people because we're so totally dependent on them. And I think that that's a real valid concern. But I don't know how, if they're taking away your sustenance and your ability to survive, at some point rubber's going to meet the road anyway. So now it's time to get to harden those feelings and to throw off that shackle of needing that white validation because it didn't do us any good. We're in worse shape now than we were a year ago. So obviously this white validation is not helping us. So maybe it's time to throw those chains off and decide it's time for a new program.
I concur. I will check to see if folks have any questions that are on the lines. If you are at the TalkShoe switchboard, it's *8. If you're on the free HD line, it's *6, and then you have to press 1. *6 and then press 1. Before I do, I just strategies, offering a few strategies, things non-white people can do, really black people, things black people can do to kind of help repair, protect their self-respect, self-esteem. Stay away from white people. Stay away from white people. I have concluded white means racist. When you are around white people, you are around racists. They're going to mistreat you, and I suspect that they will reward you for mistreating yourself and or other non-white people. That self-deprecating behavior we've talked about before. It's not good. It's not good to be Oreo experience. In my opinion, I think it is disastrous. If you are a non-white person and you're having a lot of contact with white people, they're probably going to be saying racist things and degrading other non-white people in your presence. Then you're going to have a moral dilemma. Do I challenge this white person on, these racist comments, or do I accept it? That is, it's terrible for your self-esteem to be around people who are constantly degrading you and people like you. It's terrible. Stay away from white people. In the same vein, I think very related, I would say stay away from television, because I think Dr. Welsing has said repeatedly, it's just white supremacy programming, just oozing from every channel, constantly degrading images of black people, criminalizing black people, parading our entertainment. See if I can get my 2000 Seasons quote, for whose entertainment shall we sing our agony? In what hopes shall the destroyers offer? Oh, I messed up the quote. That was all I really wanted, was the first part, really. We entertain white people with our mental illness. I mean, I just see a parade. I don't even watch television. I really don't even watch television, but the programs that people mention and the films, we parade our mental illness for white people constantly. They had a program with Halle Berry, Frankie and Alice. I forgot who mentioned it. It was a listener. Frankie and Alice. It just came out 2010 with Halle Berry. I would ring my cowbell. I'm just not on the thing. But in the film, she goes crazy. They literally do a film about a black person going crazy because of racism. She ends up having multiple personality disorder because of racism. And it is acutely tied to the fact that she was in a sexual relationship with a white person. Of course, the white people were furious about this. They were going to have to run away. Her white so-called lover ended up getting killed in a car accident, and she was in some sort of depression-like state for the rest of her life, and dealing with his loss and the racism that she endured. And she developed multiple personality disorder. And one of the disorders, she turns into a racist white woman. That's one of her multiple personalities. She turns into a racist white woman. She hits a black male over the head with a blunt object, calls him a nigger at one point when she flips into this other personality. And then later in the film, she is literally whistling Dixie. White people just parade our mental illness as entertainment. They just sit up and crack up laughing. Planet of the Apes, all of that. Anyway, avoid television. I mean, it's generally just degrading black people. I would say avoid television, especially if you have children. That is a crime to sit your child down in front of television and just walk away. Really, maybe even I would say even being there. It's just not that constructive. I would really try and minimize that as much as possible. Even if you are there, really try and minimize that. And I would say, I suspect a big part of black people, I've seen a lot of reports. We watch a disproportionate amount of television, way more than white people and other groups. I suspect, just the theory, I suspect that a part of our addiction to television could represent our white identification. That, I think, for many black people, we don't have access to white people. I think for many black people, television offers intimate access to a whole ocean of white people. And that might be, and I'm like I said, it's just a theory. I'm thinking it over. That might be a part of our addiction, which is sad, but we are in a pretty pitiful state. Avoid television. Develop your understanding of racism, white supremacy. I think the more you understand racism, white supremacy, the more you will catch the degradation of black people that's happening constantly. Just really focusing on that, I think, will really do a lot to both. You'll understand what's been done to you. You'll understand what's been done to us. And I think it will just do a lot for your sanity, helping you think clearly. And I think it does a lot to boost your self-esteem. Just knowing what's going on around you is real beneficial, real mentally helpful to know what's happening around you. And I guess these are just suggestions. Last suggestion I would give would be to monitor. I already said, stay away from white people. I would say monitor, even the non-white people that you are around. Because I don't think it's constructive, at least for me. For me, it's not constructive for me to have a lot of contact with non-white people who are very confused about racism, white supremacy. I've just found that those environments, it's easy to have conflict. It's real easy for things to become not non-constructive and or destructive. And I just think it's better for me. It's better for my self-esteem. It's better for my mental health for me to either be by myself or around other non-white people who are less confused about racism, white supremacy. I found that is very beneficial. I think that is very healthy. If you can have contact with other non-white people who are less confused about racism, very healthy. You can have constructive dialogue. You can make plans. I think a lot of people have said it's kind of reaffirming. You feel like you're not crazy to have some other people. Yes, I see what these white people are doing. Yes, these white people are real racist. It's good to hear that just because so many of us are confused and in love with white people, anti-black. But really watch that. Really watch the contact that you have with other non-white people who are, or even if they're just not constructive, even if they are informed about racism and, you all don't have constructive contact, really watch that, because I think that does have an impact when you're constantly around people and you're in conflict and it's hostile. I think that does have an impact on your mental health and your self-esteem. Those would just be some of my suggestions. Do you have any others, anything you want to get in, Pam?
Yeah, I think those are excellent suggestions. I would like to touch real briefly on the one about stay away from white people. Well, of course, we can't stay away from white people, but we do have an option of being socially engaged with white people. We do have the option of sleeping or not sleeping with white people, and I think that's very important because what I've noticed in contact between black people and white people are the ones that have to adjust. White people don't adjust to us. We have to adjust to them. And that, to me, means we have to put ourselves in a state of mind of denial and lying about our reality. I know Dr. Welsing gave an example where she was in an interview, I think on your show, and she talked about how she's white people basically do not give black people information about how other white people practice racism. So now you're talking to a white person, you're socially engaged, maybe you're sexually engaged. My question is this, and Dr. Welsing says this, is when a white person goes to bed with a black person and a white person doesn't say, this is what we say about black people when there are no black people around, the person who has classified themselves as white is keeping very important strategic and practical information from black people and saying, I love you, but I can't love you and at the same time not give you important information. And I totally agree with that. So I think that when you have these white friends and these associates or these lovers and they're withholding information from you that could, that things that could happen to you, things that might harm you, things that might help you or keep you from being harmed, and they're not sharing that information with you, then I think you need to ask yourself, why am I engaging in any kind of relationship with a person who will not tell me the truth about something that can hurt me or harm me? So I notice even in my casual interactions at work that really white people do not want an honest conversation about anything that really involves race or racism or black people or white people. They totally, I don't care if they're with a black person or not, they're not going to be honest. And if they do say something, you might lead you to think you're honest. You're only going to go so far with them. You're going to reach a point in which you cannot go past. They're not going to tell you the truth. They're not going to really tell you what you really need to know. And so my question is, why would you be friends or lovers with someone who knows you're being harmed and won't tell you how to help yourself or prevent this harm, or at least warn you about the harm that could come your way? What are you doing with that person? So I would think that alone should make you question any kind of association with anybody, white or non-white, that is withholding information about situations that could harm you. Why would you be friends with a person like that, period? I remember when you did that interview with Dr. Barbara Trepanier. Trepanier, okay. And you started, and the interview didn't last long at all. I have to admit, it really. Oh, I had to laugh when I was listening to it. And when Justice asked her, now she wrote a book about it, and this is how the interview kind of went. Justice asked her, "What makes you a white supremacist?" She says, the same person that wrote a book about racism, she says, not understanding how racism works. And when Justice asked her, could you name at least 3 ways that racism is practiced? She said she can't. And she said because she couldn't see it. And then Justice asked her, well, how do your kids practice it? I don't know. She went from calling herself, writing a book, doing a study about racism, how white people practice silent racism, to refusing to share information. And I think this is what you find with white people in general. They're not going to share information about, in other words, they have a no snitch on white people campaign. It's like a code of conduct. And if you see it, you'll see that white people don't snitch on other white people for the most part. And if they do say anything, they have a limit to what they're going to say. So, again, I asked the question, why would you have a relationship or try to have a social relationship or a friendship or a sexual relationship or marriage with someone who is withholding information from you, knowing that you're going to be harmed if you don't understand this information? Why would you even bother? So I would just, elaborate on that. I mean, seriously. Anybody that condones your mistreatment cannot be and should never be your friend.
Once again, I will emphasize 2 words that should never appear together, ever, under any circumstances: white friend. I mean, you talk about mental illness. I will make sure, because I botched the quote, which is a disgrace because 2000 Seasons is like one of my favorite books of all time. Man, it helped me immensely. You talk about the weight of white Jesus and the damage that does to white people. That book, I said it repeatedly, 2000 Seasons was immensely helpful in clearing my confusion around white Jesus and how that has just been one of the most devastating weapons of mass destruction for white terrorists. So I just want to get the quote correct, and then I'll hit the phone lines. It is Ayi Kwei Arma, African author, phenomenal book, 2000 Seasons. The quote correctly is, how have we come to, he's talking about black people, how have we come to be mere mirrors to annihilation? For whom do we aspire to reflect our people's death? For whose entertainment shall we sing our agony? In what hopes that the destroyers, aspiring to extinguish us, will suffer conciliatory remorse at the sight of their own fantastic success? The last imbecile to dream such a dream is dead, killed by the saviors of his own dream. 2000 Seasons, Ayi Kwei Arma, phenomenal work. And the sentence, all I wanted was the sentence, but that paragraph is pretty on point, I think. But the sentence, for whose entertainment shall we sing our agony? I'll leave that. If you had anything else, Pam, I can hit the phone lines unless you have anything you want to share.
No, I didn't have anything else to share except that line it says it all. It says that, to me, it speaks of the depths of dislike that white people collectively have for black people, that our suffering would be entertainment, even despite all they've done to us. Nobody's suffering is my entertainment. How would I really have to feel about someone to be entertained? Now, I might feel you deserve to suffer, but I'm never entertained by it. So what does that say about people who are entertained? And you can see it from the media, from the imagery, from the constant degradation of black people, that black people being degraded and harmed, even from taking souvenirs at lynching, having your children stand around while a man is burning to death. That's entertainment to you. It's time for us to recognize what we are dealing with, who we are dealing with, and stop judging white people collectively by that one or two white people you know personally who seems okay. It's time for us to look at the reality that we are dealing with all over the planet. Black and brown and black people, African people are suffering greatly, being greatly mistreated, tortured, abused, starved. We need to understand the depths of contempt and hatred that white people have for black people collectively. And if that doesn't keep you out the bed with them, I don't know what to say.
Co-author of Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation, and Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. Pam, the website, TrojanHorse1.com, TrojanHorse1.com. Anyone who has any doubts about that, white people being entertained by our suffering, I would just say look at the box office to see what is the #1 film this week, Planet of the Apes or The Help.
Yeah, The Help.
There you go. I mean, we could talk about the lynchings and all that being a picnic, but if you want a current version of that still being true, box office, I would just say look and see what was #1 this week, Planet of the Apes or The Help. For whose entertainment shall we sing our agony? The person who called in, M1 on the TalkShoe line. M1, did you have a question or a comment?
Good evening to all. How's everybody?
Intentionally victimized.
Same here. You're so right. One of the things I said before we had this discussion, we can point out the obvious differences, to people, whether they're children or adults, just to make sure that they get the understanding. You mentioned how white people don't snitch on each other. I'll give you a perfect example of that. Supposedly, Vice President Biden made a statement calling Tea Party members terrorists. Now, people are upset. You get Sarah Palin go on Fox News stating, heck, if we were terrorists, Obama would pal around with us. And then the other day, President Obama was confronted by a white Tea Party member saying, how is it your vice president calls us terrorists? I'm not a terrorist, on and on and on. And not one time has anybody confronted the white man who actually made the statement. It is all put on President Obama.
Right.
point this out to people. Also, that movie, Gus Falling Down, man, I can discuss that for hours. I particularly love that scene where he says, I'm not economically viable. It takes, all of 90 seconds for the police to come. Never mind, he's not violent or doing anything bad. The white man can assault a Korean grocer, destroy his stores, shoot up a fast food restaurant, destroy public property, and cops are nowhere until the end of the movie.
That is a good point.
But that black male, 90 seconds, bang. Right there.
Right.
And keep up the good work, Pam, particularly when, we have black women creating and producing, and in some cases, both programs like Single Ladies,
Goodness.
Single Ladies, Off the Map, Grey's Anatomy, Hawthorne.
Yeah.
I mean, just need a balance to this because they just really gone overboard with the negativity.
But of course, you understand too that they're not in charge either. They're merely lending. There's a scene in the Trojan Horse book describing this black female who tries to sell a script, and by the time she gets through with this meeting with this white female executive producer, the whole story has changed from a drama to a comedy, from one black woman having a decent name to being called Krashanda. So the black people that are involved in the entertainment industry, it's either go along or get out. And I'm not defending them, but they're just pawns.
And I agree. I never say anything. I didn't say anything bad about them, but I just want to make the point that we need the balance to deal with some of the things that say they are allowed to make. I'm sure someone else will want to speak.
I appreciate your calling.
Yes, sir. Good to hear from you, sir. You can, if you don't have a lot of background noise, I can leave your line open and just get the next caller if you don't have too much. Or you can mute your line. That way you can chime in when you feel. Okay. I'll leave your line open then.
I'll do that. I'll mute my line, and I'll come in whenever I need to.
Okay. Groovy. Person who dialed in on the TalkShoe line, Demery 4, your line is open.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, greetings, Pam.
Greetings.
Greetings, Gus.
Greetings.
I'm a victim of white supremacy, which I consider myself uniquely qualified to speak on the subject. But first I want to make a comment. Then I'll ask a question for Pam, which I think is a complex question. So while she's thinking about her answer, I want to ask you, Gus, a question. Give her a chance to gather her thoughts on that. But my comment would be, we were discussing validation, and I feel like that everyone needs to be validated at some point. But looking to white people for validation, as far as I'm concerned, is a form of suicide. And that validation, if a person would be true to their inner feeling and if they can feel secure with their own idea about what's right and wrong, based upon their own value system, then they could feel worthy within themselves and have a sense of self-respect. And self-affirmation, to me, would be a good thing for someone that's requiring validation and is searching the wrong places for it. Self-affirmation such as, I'm a good person, I'm intelligent, I'm capable, I'm powerful, I deserve to be treated in a respectful manner, those types of things. That's my comment. And the question I have for Pam is, I was looking at some statistics, concerning the population in America, population of white people versus the population of African Americans. Population since 1790 on through 2010. It looks like that white Americans made up 80% of the population in 1790. Blacks made up roughly 19%. Through 1930 and 1940, white people became the highest percentage in America, 89% in 1930 and 1940. As it went on, their populations increased until around 1980. Then they started to decrease. And in 2010, they were at their lowest at 72%. Black people, on the other hand, started out in the 1790s at a high, 19%, the highest, and started to go down until around 1950. It started to stabilize to 10%, then 11%, and in 1970, 1990, 12%, and 2010, about 12.5%, which I think it maintains somewhere around that 12, 13% for black people. So my question really is, during the system of white supremacy, how do you think that the racist man and racist woman is maintaining these percentages, around something manageable, I figure, for African Americans, in their point of view, 13%. And at the same time, what accounts for their decrease in population? And so, Pam, while you think of that, I'd like Gus to tell me how he came up with his definition of racism, white supremacy, because it seems to be so complete. I know he had to think about it somewhat.
Right on. Thank you for your question, sir. While Pam is thinking, wow, good question. I think it started, I wish I had more of the archives from when the program first started in 2007, because we had a definition. I think at that time when the C.O.W.S first started, Back of the Bus and Gus, I had not read Mr. Fuller's code book at the time. I had heard I had listened to his lectures endlessly. And I had spoken with him for, hours on end, but I hadn't read the book. So I didn't have his definition, in front of me in a book where I could study it. And when we decided to do the radio program, I wanted a definition that was accurate and portable. When I say portable, I meant something that I wouldn't need to have it written down in front of me. I wanted something that was concise and to the point, not, compromising the accuracy of the definition, but something that I could memorize and say pretty quickly. And that would make sense. People would understand what I was saying. I don't remember what the precise definition that we were using at that time, I'd have to go back and listen. It was not what it is now. White people, when they kicked us off the air the first time, I was refining, right, my understanding of white supremacy. And I remember it was one day specifically where I was with another black male. We were discussing racism, white supremacy. I was trying to get him on the program, and he had younger victims too. I was trying to get these younger people to come listen to the program. And I was saying that white people, when we talk about system, we get very nebulous. It's not clear. It ends up just being racism is in the atmosphere, or it's institutional racism, and it ends up sounding like we're talking about everything but individual white people. And I just said the system is white people. That's the actual system. That's what we're talking about. We keep getting away from wanting to blame Ted and Jane that are right in front of us, and that's the problem. It's Ted and Jane. And I just said that the definition should reflect that the system is white people. And I remember that was a big change for me anyway. I mean, it was a big change for the definition system of people. And I think the only other change was dedicated. I think just continuing to study, and it just became undeniable that everything white people do incorporates the practice of white supremacy. That is the dominant activity. And anything, that, in my opinion, that is obsessive behavior, these people are dedicated to making sure that this stays in place forever. Everything about their behavior suggests that. I mean, it was as obvious as black people don't like black people. This is obvious, even though it's not said clearly, but it's obvious. Those were two critical points. I couldn't give you an exact day, but I know changing it to system of people, that was an asterisk for me. That was very important. And the dedication and just wanting to be very explicit that I think white people are very conscious and deliberate about what they're doing. They're meticulous about what they're doing. And I think that gets to your question for Pam about how they maintain meticulous population numbers of non-white people. Does that answer your question?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, it does. Thanks, Gus. I knew you had done a lot of thinking with that definition because it's so accurate, and, I can almost say it myself by heart, but I love it, and I just want to validate you for your show. I love it, and I love when Pam comes, and I'm waiting for her answer. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Pam?
Okay, another good question. Of course, it's, just my opinion. I would think that they maintain the populations pretty much the way they maintain everything. I think that, like Gus said, they're dedicated. First of all, they're dedicated in the art of deception. I don't know what the real population numbers are. I'm not totally confident that I'm being given accurate information. But assuming that I am, I know that black people are pretty much what you would call a confined population, and that they have many means to control our population growth and control where we live, control how many of us are locked up, control how many of us get adequate medical care, how many of us are murdered in the process of getting so-called medical care, the diseases that afflict our community, like HIV and AIDS, all man-made, in my opinion. The food ailments, the foods that kill us. I believe as a matter of fact, I have no doubt whatsoever that we're being poisoned within our communities from the food supply and the water supply, and from the chemtrails. And chemtrails are, if you've ever seen a jet fly overhead and you've seen this white stream, chemtrails are basically, they resemble those kind of trails, those kind of white trails. The difference is the chemtrails have chemicals in them. If anybody wants to Google it, you'll read all about it. I remember a friend of mine who lived in the inner city, a really traumatized area of Chicago. Lots of gang violence, just black people in a very devastated state, under attack by the system. Poverty, drugs, all of this. And it's a miracle that anybody living in that area on the west side of Chicago could even maintain any sanity. He said one day he saw the chemtrails, and he said shortly after that he noticed people were arguing, they were just acting crazy. I remember when I saw them over my area where I live, and people came to work the next day with flu-like symptoms, but they didn't have the flu. So what I'm saying is there's all kinds of methods that are being used to curtail population growth among non-white people, period. Regarding white people's population decline, the only thing I can attribute that to is the fact that white people are experiencing fertility problems. Maybe that's part of it. There's a lot of abortions. Of course, there's abortions on the black population, but I suspect if they're experiencing population declines, which they are all over the world, from what I understand, I would think that a lot of that has to do with their genetics and their infertility problems. And I believe that's part of the reason that they're pushing interracial relationships between white people and non-white people, is they're trying to repair their genetics. And unfortunately, when black people, particularly black people, breed with white people, they are actually, in my opinion, aiding and abetting and extending the life of white supremacy. Because, as we state in the book, the typical relationship, say a typical relationship between a black male and a white female, usually doesn't end in marriage, but it may result in children. Those children, whether it's a marriage or not, that relationship typically doesn't last, and those non-white children are raised by that white female, and that white female is going to raise them to be white identified. And being white identified with a white parent, they're probably going to gravitate toward breeding with another white person, which means their children will appear to be white, but they won't be. They'll have more melanin and probably a greater chance of having fertility. I believe white people are using non-white people as almost a genetic laboratory to try to breed some stability and longevity into their genetics. And that's something for black people to consider, as when you breed with white people, you are actually aiding and abetting the system of white supremacy by enhancing the genetics of white people. Another reason to stay out of bed with white people. See, white people are not in bed with us because we're just people. They are systematically doing whatever it is that they do. So that would be my opinion. But again, that's assuming that the statistics that they give us are accurate. And this system is based on deception, so I take almost everything that they say with a grain of salt. Actually, with a shaker full of salt.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
I just, want to end this with, some of you guys' favorite quotes. The racist does not do anything that doesn't support white supremacy. As you say, Pam and Gus, we must become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'll just mute my line and listen to the other callers. Thank you.
And you know what? You're right. I mean, I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable all the time. I mean, it's not easy being in a society where I have to interact with people, and I have these secret feelings because I'm obviously not saying everything that's on my mind. But that's why it's important for me to stay out of bed with them so that I can maintain some psychological distance. So even though I have to interact, I don't have to go to bed with you at night. It is mandatory, in my opinion, for black people in a system of white supremacy to maintain some psychological distance. If you don't, you're going to be psychologically devastated. And you are not going to be operating under your own mental strength. You're going to be operating like a robot.
Invisible Man.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry, sir. I was just saying. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. I was just concurring with Pam, and I'm trying to wrap my head around that we're at war, and we should get serious about this genocide that's taking place.
It's unfortunate, but you're absolutely right. This is war, and it's been war ever since we crossed paths. And I know that it's hard to really wrap your heads around this sometimes. But if you look at the casualties and you look at the devastation that's going on, I don't see how you can come to any other conclusion.
The person who called in, Sir Anton, your line is open. I just wanted to toss in 1 cent. I think it might be relevant in terms of how white people control population period, how they control these numbers and all that. I think one key aspect, as always, with racist woman and racist man, the way that they use words. When you have this, these tragic arrangements and you have the offspring, a lot of this is with words and getting non-white people to say, well, I'm not black, I'm biracial, damn it. Or I am multiracial. I am anything other than black. That's another way that this has worked, where you now have people who, and they give you more and more options. We'll just fill the census up. We'll have, 8,000 categories for you to pick from. So if you don't want to be black, you can pick one of the other that is below white. Just wanted to get that. I think that
black.
Exactly. I think that's one of the key ways that they have manipulated the population of black people, getting hordes of non-white people to not classify as black, which is intricately related to
validating black people. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was just going to say that's back to the bedroom again. That's all.
Mm-hmm. And what effect does it have on black people to have offspring, or to know that these offspring are part black and they don't want to be black, if you don't understand that this is not a reflection of reality, this is just pure programming nonsense? It can affect yourself. It can put another chink in the armor of your self-esteem and make you think, wow, being black, nobody wants to be black. I've actually heard black people say, nobody likes black people. And I asked them, who is the nobody you're talking about? And so they brought down the list, this and that. And I said, well, you know what? Why should we? I mean, first of all, you don't know that that's true. Secondly, why, if we black people loved each other, it wouldn't matter. I don't look at these other non-white groups as my allies. They're not my allies. And what I try to say to black people is, and this is just my opinion, is we got to stop looking for validation from anybody else. Not from Hispanics, Asians, all these other non-white people. Listen, they're victims of white supremacy, but you know what? They don't see themselves as black. They're not our allies. They don't align themselves with our causes. They don't march when we get shot up in the street. And my proof of the fact that they don't think of themselves as part of us is go to their community and try to open a business as a black person. You'll find out real quick that they don't consider you part of their community. So I would say that a lot of times we get involved in these interracial relationships with these other non-black, non-white people. Still, it's a form of looking for outside validation. We don't need their validation. We don't need them to like us. They don't wither up and die because we're not validating them. We have got to move away from validation from anybody else. Validate self, validate other black people. If we did that, we wouldn't care what anybody else thinks. And I personally don't care if Hispanic, Asian people, whatever, think about black people. I really don't care. I just don't care. Because I'm not going to bed with them either.
Sir Anton, your line should be open.
Greetings, can I be heard?
I can hear you.
Greetings, Pam.
Greetings.
Greetings, Gus. I just want to know, Pam, have you received your Black Love is a Revolutionary Act shirt yet?
Yes, I did.
Awesome.
It's a beautiful shirt. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. I just wanted to mention to the listeners that they can buy their Black Love is a Revolutionary Act T-shirt at www.cafepress.com. www.facebook.com/constructive concepts. Just wanted to drop that first. And my question for you is, well, I'll just start off with a statement. I've been seeing this new fad or phenomenon called planking. Are you familiar with that at all?
I heard a little bit about it. I'm still confused about it.
It's basically when someone, it's like when people lay down like straight, like horizontally or whatever on top of something, and they hold their balance up. It's kind of hard to explain. You would have to see it, but to me, it looks like, it seems like a slave tradition. You know, it's how we were, brought over on the Middle Passage. I mean, we were just basically, dispersed, amongst, on the ship, just laid out, and people are just planking all over the place nowadays like it's fun, like it's something, like it's entertaining. And I'm trying to explain to people, like, this is a slave tradition. What are we doing? We're glorifying our formal enslavement. And, people are just not trying to hear that. I had one person tell me, well, you shouldn't be offended. You weren't a slave.
Was that a black person or?
Yes.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so that was really difficult to deal with. But I'll try to shoot you an email to give you, so you can, get a better view of what planking is and what it looks like, because to me it looks like a slave tradition. My next question for you was, have you seen or heard about the film The Help? And if so, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I as soon as it's my first thought, as soon as I heard about The Help, was it's similar to the thought I had about planking. I'm looking at a picture of some black guy planking now, and laying face down on top of some wheels. They said it started in Australia. I have the same thought, and that is that white people are going back to the old ways of doing things. They're taking this help. Somehow they've taken a movie. Now, I'm not going to see the movie. They're not getting a dime from me. But somehow they've taken the subjugation and exploitation of black women in lazy white women's houses and turned it into some kind of noble endeavor. From what I see is them trying to portray the kind of work that black women used to do as okay, because that's where they want to push us back to. They want us back to, see, this is just my theory, a lot of the Mexicans, believe it or not, are going home. The climate here is becoming more hostile. The economy in Mexico is actually better for a lot of them than it is here. So the Mexicans are going home. Who's going to clean the lazy white women's houses now? Who's going to plant the crops? Black people got to be aware. There's black people working in the fields as we speak. There's black people on plantations in Mississippi and Louisiana working like slaves. There are black prisoners in Angola prison in Louisiana, and you can hardly find these articles anymore, that are actually working on the same land, planting cotton on the same exact land that their slave ancestors planted cotton. I'm talking about the year 2009. So what I'm saying is, if white people, as Dr. Welsing says, are going back to the old ways of doing things, what does that really mean? Does that mean black women who are losing jobs are going to be relegated back to cleaning lazy white women's houses? I say yes. I say, are black people going to be taken? See, the clock never went forward. We just thought it did. But the appearance of the clock changed. But in reality, they're going back to the old ways of doing things. I think that's a way of, like the planking thing. And I don't know what the planking thing is, but let's assume that it is something to do with slavery. You're making a mockery of slavery. Well, when you get black women making movies where black women are laughing and giggling with a bunch of lazy white women as they clean their houses, what is that really saying? That's saying that, hey, cleaning houses ain't as bad as you think. Look, you actually can have fun doing this. I believe that they're going to try to, with the economy being bad, black people, if we're not careful, I don't know how careful we can be, because a lot of it's out of our control, but I think we're going to see black people relegated to doing the same kind of labor that our grandfathers and grandmothers did. And we need to pay attention to that, because I believe that's what in every movie they put out here, in my opinion, it's a movie showing you about how racism, white supremacy really functions, what white people are really thinking. And I don't think the help is any different. The way I saw it, I just saw it as, once again, I'm trying to elevate the white black women cleaning lazy white women's houses to some kind of acceptable activity.
I totally agree. I think and the interesting thing is, and mark my words, I'm pretty sure that Viola Davis is going to win an Oscar for her performance. It's Hattie McDaniel all over again.
Right.
All over again. So, I mean, I find that a lot of black females that I talk to about the film, they the females that enjoyed the film and say it's great, most of the time are Christian. And when I watched the film, I didn't go see it. I downloaded it. They had a lot of images of white Jesus in the film, and
really?
Yes, and wow. in order because initially the maids didn't want to help the white woman because for obvious reasons they could be killed for that, so they didn't want to do it. But lo and behold, they went to church and they had a church scene, and the reverend was preaching about courage. So basically, they were influenced by white Jesus to go in and help this white woman write a book to tell white people what they already know. And that's just bothersome to me. So we just need to wake up, all of us collectively. We need to wake up, because this is serious. Yeah. They're turning the clocks back on. It's like you said, it's serious.
And the church thing, and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody, whatever religion or religious faith you have, but you really got to really ask yourself, why would the people that gave you this religion and told you to practice it in a certain way, how have they managed to keep you subjugated with that religion? And if that religion kept you subjugated and psychologically enslaved, should you not examine that religion to see if it is still performing the same function? Because I think it's significant that what you just said about them showing images of white Jesus in this movie about black women cleaning lazy white women's houses. And if you read and the thing is people think, well, cleaning houses, listen, if you read the stories of black women that worked in these homes, there's a book called Dry, Long, Sew. DR is the word dry, then long, then sew. And it's a book that's still available on Amazon or online. And if you read the stories of the black women that worked in these houses, how they were treated by these white females that they worked for, the degradation, and a lot of times black women, black girls were raped in these houses by the men in those houses. If you read the stories, you will see there's nothing amusing or entertaining or enlightening about working in a lazy white woman's house. You were not part of the family. Sorry. They try to portray it as you're just like one of the family. But if you're one of the family, how can I be one of the family when I leave your house? I'm still treated like a Nigger. And you condone that. So my point is just that this is brain trashing. And I think Cree is the one that I heard first use this word. This is nothing but brain trashing. And when you see black people planking, this just shows you the psychological devastation that is happening under the system of white supremacy to people who do not understand the system of white supremacy, and particularly people who are sleeping with white people and do not understand the system of white supremacy. This is just psychological slaughter going on, that black people are paying money to be entertained by their own degradation and not even recognizing it. And if you ask the average black woman that's in that film, a black person that watches that film that enjoyed it, hey, you think that might be what it comes back to, that you're going to have to go in some white woman's house and clean it? They'll tell you no. Then you say, well, are you working? Are you employed? No. Okay, so at what point are you going to get hungry enough to go and clean a lazy white woman's house? That's a serious question, because the Mexicans are going home. Somebody's going to have to do some work, because I believe this society is moving to the point where they ain't going to pay you just not to work. They're not going to help you. There's not going to be a safety net. You're not going to sit at home because you're poor, and I'm not denigrating anybody poor, because I think people are poor because the system makes people poor. But you're not going to be sitting at home collecting benefits. They're going to make you work. Now, what kind of work? They're actually in Chicago. They're talking about making the prisoners in Cook County Jail work in the dog pound. Free labor. They're talking about training prisoners to do all kinds of work. Free labor. They don't want to pay for anything now. What's next? Prisoners going off to war? So I'm just saying, you're watching the things change around you, and I don't think it's that far-fetched that some sisters are going to be, sisters or brothers, going to be in the house cleaning lazy white women's houses if they want to eat. And I don't think that's far-fetched at all.
So essentially you think that this film is normalizing that, so when that time does come, it's like, well, it's already normalized via the film to help.
Yeah, you've already accepted it. Because they've already portrayed it as something, ain't really that bad. I mean, to me, the movies are psychological. I'll put it this way. I think the movies are telling you what is either going to happen or is already happening. It tells you how the system of white supremacy functions, and it tells you the status of non-white people in that system, like an ape. So, it's not pleasant. But the whole thing for me is I don't see the benefit of avoiding truth. I just don't see it anymore. I mean, I just don't see how you benefit by ignoring what's going on. I mean, it may fool you and think you can avoid some unpleasantness, but if your reality doesn't change, how are you avoiding anything? So why not look at it so you can prepare yourself psychologically and perhaps come up with a strategy? But ignoring it doesn't make it go away.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. Thanks for the T-shirt idea.
No problem.
Person who dialed in, guest 9, do you have a question or a comment?
Greetings, Pam and Gus.
Greetings.
I just was listening to the conversation. I just wanted to share with you all that I have a sister who recently graduated from a 4-year university political science degree. Unable to get any jobs, and right now she's forced to help an old white lady with her housework. So sorry to hear.
Wow. What state is that?
Virginia, Washington, D.C.
Wow. That's funny you say that because I had been noticing something, and maybe some of you have. And at first I think I had the wrong take on it. But I had seen older black women with white men, older white men even, these women might have been in their 50s, maybe early 60s, with these white men that looked like they might have been 70. And at first I thought, oh, Lord, it ain't that bad. You ain't got to hook up with him. But then it dawned on me when I saw this black woman, and she looked so tired. She looked like she might have been about 60. She looked so tired. She was pushing a shopping cart in the parking lot of Walmart, and this white man was older walking with her. And I'm looking like, why is she pushing the cart? Because I assumed they were a couple. And then later it hit me. Maybe she's not a couple. Maybe they're not a couple. Maybe she's working for him. And then I saw it a couple of times after that, and I said, man, maybe these sisters are in these houses working for these people. Maybe the guy's, older and whatever, But I started thinking, maybe these aren't relationships. Maybe these are employees.
Yeah.
I've seen it right here in my area about 3 times. And at first, I think I had the wrong take on it. Now I think these women might have been working for these men.
Yeah, it's very sad that my sister is doing the exact same job that my grandmother was doing.
Wow.
Also, I wanted to share with you, Pam, that both of your books, and after reading them, I really, and also been reading a little bit of Cola Booth, and both of these readings together have really showed me how beauty and the manipulation of beauty is integral to the system of racism, white supremacy, and how you can dictate a lot of social behavior just by controlling what is beautiful, and how making black ugly, you're just working on all levels of activity at once, and how eliminating population and destroying people's psychological health and everything. been making steps to make sure that I view black as beautiful now and trying to convince others to do so.
And you know, the strange thing is, I remember when I was younger, and I don't even really want to admit this, but when I was in grammar school, I was attracted to the bright-skinned boys. I mean, because they just stood out. And as I got older, that wasn't the case. But what I'm saying is, it's really strange how you can think one thing is better, but if you get into a different environment or you have a different mindset, it's no longer true. The whole thing about beauty, it's all made up anyway. I mean, it's all a cultural thing in the sense that whatever culture you belong to tells you this looks good, you start to believe it. But that doesn't make it true. You know, so actually black people are really just brainwashed with these lies. I mean, there is nothing I mean, it's really funny that we've been taught that white people are the most beautiful, but it's apparent that they don't even believe it. Because if you look at all of the devices and the plastic surgery and the self-mutilation and the anorexia and just a total makeover and dislike for their own bodies, and yet we've put them on a platform of a pedestal of beauty, they don't even believe it. So, you know, it's just, and the thing that troubles me the most is if we're taught that we're not beautiful to each other, how in the world can we have good relationships with each other? You know, so I think that's fundamental, is that we've got to look at each other with different eyes, because if we don't value each other based on the way we look, I mean, what kind of relationships could we possibly have? What kind of children could we possibly raise?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I had a mentor once tell me, she said that back in ancient Africa, that they didn't really regard beauty as something physical. What made someone beautiful was what they did, how they behaved, and their spirit. It was never anything external, because essentially beauty is something that you can't control. You either have it or you're born the way you are, and that's simply it.
You know, there's this African author. I wish I could find that quote. He described, I don't know when this book was written, but he described, and obviously this is before they were colonized, I think. I don't know. But he wrote a book, and he described this black woman. And she was so black, her skin was so black, that basically men were just awestruck. He had, in this passage, described this black-skinned woman as so beautiful you could even see it. And it wasn't, a detailed blow-by-blow description. It was just her skin was so dark that men were awestruck at the sight of her. That's how they thought, this is what they thought was beautiful. And now we're sitting here worshiping skin that wrinkles up. Gets all kinds of spots on it. Okay, I'm not going to say all that. It's all a mind game. That's the only thing I would say. It's all a mind game. If somebody tells you somebody's beautiful, looks like on the cover of these magazines, the most beautiful man in the world, what are you talking about? How does that exist? How do you judge that? But if you keep saying somebody is beautiful, people start to believe it. And this is what white supremacy has done. They've repeated the same lie over and over and over and over and over again. And then it starts to seem like the truth. But in reality, it's just all made up. It's just brain trashing.
Thank you for your comments. I have no further comments.
Thank you.
I'm going to check the free HD line really quick. I thought there was another hand, but I don't see it. I guess if you called and you had a hand, dial back in if you got bumped off, if white people cause some interference. I'll double check the free HD line, see if there are folks over there who have questions. The address again, TrojanHorse1.com, TrojanHorse1.com. Marcella, did you have a question or a comment?
Oh, hi, Gus. I haven't been on the line for the majority of the show, and I'm just listening and trying to learn and better understand the system of white supremacy. However, I do have a comment because the gentleman did state some things he noticed about the planking issue. I'm going to call it's an issue to me. And when I openly stated my position on Facebook, I came under attack by another non-white person, and I was quite surprised at the venom that this person, I think, spewed verbally, in written form at me. I chose not to argue because I know, one of the rules, you don't sit and argue with another victim. You just try to, come to an understanding if you can. Surprisingly speaking, a couple of weeks later, I visited I supported my argument with pictures of the internal bays of slave ships. However, when I went to the I think it's the Blacks and Wax Museum in Baltimore, Maryland, it really hit home, and it made me understand that sometimes the opposition or lack of understanding could be, one of the major causes could be just a lack of knowledge and understanding of one's history that doesn't allow one to understand. Well, I'm just going to use me as an example. It would be, for me, a lack of understanding of my history and my ancestral lineage that would cause me to reject some things that's quite obvious to another who may have that understanding. And so that's kind of my stance on it, because if you think, my grandmother worked in a factory very hard and was able to acquire certain things in her life, and I find even though we're supposed to be more educated in our generation, we don't acquire as much as, someone like she or another domestic worker. And so me knowing how hard she worked and how hard my ancestors worked just so I could go to school, I didn't sit on any bus. I didn't sit on any back. I didn't sit on the back of any bus. I didn't have to go out there and experience what was experienced back during the civil rights movement. And so why would I want to move backwards, especially when it's obviously so much information on what they went through just to make a living so that we could be today. Gus, I'm very frightened right now because as I continue to read and listen to the shows and gain a better understanding of what's going on, I'm more solution driven. I haven't figured out too much of anything. So that's all I wanted to say.
Right on. I think it is a danger. It is a time where I think it is correct to have some fear. I think white people just looking at the riots and things that are happening all around the planet. I think racist man and racist woman, they have a lot of bad things in store for black people, especially black people. So, hopefully we can get some solutions. I hope this program, we're generating constructive thoughts, ideas, solutions, strategies to deal with this problem, because I think white people have a lot of bad things in store for us. Caller on Skype, female caller on Skype. You dialed in before. Did you have a question or comment? Skype caller, did you have a question or are you just listening? Okay. We'll assume she is just listening. Thank you for listening in. Person that called in, last four digits, 1288. 1288. Did you have a question or comment? (1288), just listening, or do you have a question? Okay, assume they're just listening. Let's see. 3413. Did you have a question or a comment? 3413, or are you just listening?
Well, actually, I do have an article I would like to read. That's okay. How are you doing today, Gus and Pam? It's good to hear you again, Pam. I haven't heard you in a while. It's an article that was published in a magazine called Sister, and it was back in the mid-'90s. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's about a white lady who wrote to a black magazine. She was disgusted about how black women treated her. I guess being out in public, she dated a black man. And the article reads, Dear Jamie, I am sorry, but I would like to challenge some of your black male readers. I am a white female who is engaged to a black male, good-looking, educated, and loving. I just don't understand a lot of black females' attitudes about our relationship. My man decided he wanted me because the package amongst black women was slim to none. As he said, they were either too fat, too loud, too mean, or too argumentative, too needy, too materialistic, and carrying too much baggage. Before I became engaged, whenever I went out, I was constantly approached by black men willing to wine and dine me and give me the world. If black women are so up in arms about us being with their men, why don't they look at themselves and make some changes? I am tired of the dirty looks I get and snide remarks when we're out in public. I would like to hear from some black men about why they're so appealing and coveted by them. Why we are so, appealing and coveted by them. Brian Gumbo just left his wife of 26 years for one of us, Charles Barkley, Scottie Pippen, the model Tyson Bedford, Montel Williams, Quincy Jones, James Earl Jones, Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, Cuba Jr., Don Cornelius, Berry Gordy, Billy Blanks, Larry Fishburne, Wesley Snipes. I could go on and on. But right now, I'm a little angry, and that is why I wrote this so hurriedly. Don't be mad with us white women because so many of your men want us. Get your acts together and learn from us, and we may lead you to treat your men better. If I am wrong, black men, let me know. Disgusted white girl. And I don't know if you were familiar with that article. But a black man did respond, and I thought he did a good job. But I don't know if you want me to read it or not. But yeah, that article, I saved it because it was like really, I don't know, it was something. But that's it.
I've read that too. I've read it. I think that's gone the rounds for quite a few years. That particular.
Okay, yeah. It was pretty serious. Did you read the response from the black guy?
Yeah.
That responded to her. Okay. Yeah, I think he did. I think he did a good job. He pretty much.
I always wondered too. I'm sorry. I was gonna say I always wondered too. Sometimes some of these people that post things online, if whether it's authentic. I mean, I've seen white people pretending to be black. I've seen white females pretending to be black males. I've seen black.
Okay.
I believe that it's possible that a white female wrote it. I also believe it's possible that he glossed it up a bit too. So.
Right. Yeah. It definitely caught my attention. Yeah, and this for her to post it in the black magazine. I guess she posted in the right place, for black women to read it. So, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you for calling.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Wow.
One thing I would caution people about too, and I've saw that letter many times, and I said the first time I read it, I got mad and everything. It was offensive to me. It was also like it was a bit of a blow. It didn't make me feel very good. But the one thing I have noticed online is there's a lot of people instigating flame wars between black males and females. If you go on these black websites, these so-called black websites, like Black Voices and Black Planet, you'll see a lot of really ugly flame wars. And I really believe, matter of fact, I've had some corroboration that some of these flame wars are instigated by people, agitators, people who are paid to agitate, people who are white people sometimes who are paid to pose as black people and agitate hostility between black males and females. And I know on Black Voices that was real common. And sometimes, we could expose them. Me and some of my cohorts, we would challenge them and we would get them to say things and try to get them to reveal that they were white people. And sooner or later, they would say something that pretty much, we felt blew their cover a little bit. And so there's a lot of black people need to be aware. This is war, and whatever they can do to turn black men against black females or turn black females against black males, they're going to do. And the internet is a great place to do it because it's easy to operate in anonymity where nobody can really tell who you are. But I would just say be aware of that when you read certain things. Sometimes those things are manufactured to create hostility.
Keep that in mind on the Facebook groups as well. Say that again. Keep that in mind for the Facebook groups as well. Person called in from Block's number. Did you have a question or comment? Okay, assume they are just listening. Person that called in 1760. Did you have a question or a comment?
Hey, greetings to you, Gus, and to Pam. I just wanted to call in to say hello to Pam. I hadn't heard her in a while.
Yeah, greetings. Haven't heard you in a while either. I guess I need to tune in more often.
No, I could not. When I knew that you were coming on tonight, I said I was just going to call in and say hello to you and to Justice. I haven't heard her in a while as well. Was she on earlier tonight, Gus?
No, ma'am.
Oh, she didn't call? Okay. Well, greetings to y'all. Pam, fantastic as usual to have you on, and I do agree with you when you were stating with the publications, the different so-called black publications, which are all white-owned, like The Root is owned by the Washington Post. AOL, of course, owns Black Voices and Black Planet, as well as The Griot is owned by MSNBC. So you just got to be cautious as to when you see these so-called black things out here. Of course, there are a lot of white people out here pretending to be black and putting these flaming arguments out here to get you going at each other.
Yeah, and negative articles, too.
Correct. Anything to stir up a dialogue, they'll put it out there, and as Gus says, with the Facebook pages as well as with his disruption that he's been having on his network with all of these so-called people, which we're not even going to waste time talking about them because that's exactly what they want. They just want the attention and for you to mention their names in order to give them some kind of validation.
Yeah, we got to be aware. I mean, you look at these black websites, the negative articles, hello, beautiful, all this kind of stuff, just madness. I mean, just negative stuff. I mean, a lot of times, particularly attacking black women, that's really common. Why are black women this, black women that, black women that? Understand, this is the art, this is the business of white supremacy. I don't care if they have a so-called black writer's face on it. I don't care if it's on a black website. This is the business of white supremacy, to demoralize black females. I would like to caution sisters, too. They're pushing a lot of this interracial stuff on black women, And I would say this, the first step to me, and I watched this happen over the years, is to demoralize black women, make black women feel that they're so unattractive and so undesirable. They did it through the articles, through the movies. Okay, now that they've got us in a state of demoralization, now they tell us, well, the black man don't want you, but guess what? That white man will date you. My fear is that black women are going to fall for the con, and we're going to start to become the white man's whore again. Only this time we didn't have to be in the slave cabins. We're going to come to his cabin voluntarily. So I would caution sisters that they are attempting to push us into that role of the white man's whore. You are going to be out there. Be very careful because the white men that you think are these open-minded white men are racist white men. And they don't think any different of you, not really, than they thought of your grandmother. And if you ever want some confirmation of that, I would suggest that you pick up the book by Renethia Tate called Pieces of a Puzzle. And you will hear what these white men said, and you will see what these black women said. And I would just caution sisters, don't fall into this game of becoming a modern-day white man's whore. Be very careful about the people that you call yourself dealing with, because it can cost you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I see them trying to push black women, making us feel desperate and undesirable.
I agree, Pam, especially that magazine, Madame Noire, Noire. that is the owner of that magazine. She is married to a white male. She owns that and Gossip, and they do a lot of articles pushing black females into seeking relationships with white men. And another blog, and her name is Sharon Kyle. She does a blog that's called LA Progressive, a black female that's also married to a white man, because she did an article on that move on the help. And I happened to wrote a commentary on her page denouncing what I thought about her article, because first of all, she of course started off by stating that she is a member of a predominantly white church and her husband is a white male. And then, of course, and she went down and she started going through with the help. And I already knew right then and there, once she started off like that, I knew that this was not going to be a very positive thing. So, of course, I did my little commentary. She didn't respond to me, but someone else that came after me and did something glowing about the movie, she went along and she thanked them for, thank you so much for being responsive. And then, of course, another black person came afterwards and called me a racist.
And that's a trip when a black person calls you another black person a racist.
Yes, and I had to respond, and I said, you perhaps you might want to pick up a dictionary and look up the definition of the word racism, and I broke it down to him, explaining what a race, the institutions and the system, and so we are just in for it. So I'm not going to tie you up, Pam. It was always great, as usual, to hear you and hear the rest of the cast. Where is 909? Is he online? He didn't call in tonight?
I have not heard from him as of yet. I'm not sure if he's listening or, what have you, but I have not heard from him yet.
Well, I'm sure he'll call in before the night is out. I'll go ahead and I'll listen in the background on the rest of y'all. Fantastic show as usual, Gus.
Good to hear from you. One thing I want to throw out real quick, and that is look at the side benefit of black women going that route. Fewer black people being born. See, I think there's a concerted effort, starting with the sterilization of black women to the degradation of black women, making us into undesirable females. I think part of that is to reduce the black birth rate. They don't want black women reproducing any more black babies than absolutely necessary. So by throwing us in the white man's lap, the children we have, the few that we have, we're having fewer babies with black men. So I think that's one of the primary side benefits of pushing interracial on black women, is to stop black women from reproducing with black men. They don't want us to have these black-on-black babies. And then they tell black women something else. You don't even have to be married. Marriage, single black women are happier. So they're really trying to discourage us from even getting married. They're telling us we can't get married, and even if you could get married, would you really want to get married? So they're doing all kinds of things to stop black women from forming families, to stop black women from having babies with black men. So that's one thing that I think we need to look at when it comes to interracial relationship question. They don't want black men and women reproducing. They don't want us to have strong families. They don't want us to build stable communities. They know that everything comes from the family. And if they can stop us from coming together and having families, we can't build anything without families. We can't build anything. You can't have a community. You can't have a business base. You can't have an economic base. You could have no safety and no security without a stable family base. And they know that. So they're doing everything they can to disrupt the black family creation. So that's part, I think, of this interracial push, is to stop us from having strong black families.
Let's see here. I'm checking the switchboard. Let's see. Okay. I guess folks are listening. I see hands, *8 at TalkShoe, *6 free HD. I hit all of the lines. I don't see any more hands. I guess the people who called in who did have a hand up, your lines are open if you had another question or a comment that you wanted to get in. Oh, sorry, wait a minute. Sorry. Person in New York, did you have a question? Person in New York?
Yes. Gus?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Hi, this is LBM. Hi.
Greetings. Good to hear from you.
Hi, Pam. Hey. I wanted to back Pam up on a couple of points. What you were just saying in terms of buying into the undesirability of black women. We as black women can't afford to do that. We don't want to become the white man's whore or the black man's whore, for that matter. When we buy into this idea of the undesirability of black women, it pushes some of us towards this white male who is going to trash us, who is not going to marry us. Not that that would be a great thing either, but, I caution black women to look at something that Umar Abdullah Johnson said. I mean, white men have always been willing to have sex with us, but how many of them actually marry us? So that's not really a viable option. But also the other piece to that is, when you buy into this thing that you're so undesirable, you also fall into the bed of black men that you shouldn't fall into the bed with. I'm looking, just from my eyes, what I can see, some of the things that black women are putting up with behind that whole idea of, well, who else wants you? So we got to be real careful with that. As far as the help is concerned, I think the help really speaks to the viciousness of the white female. I think that one of the things that the help is trying to do is frame the conversation in terms of what life for a domestic worker really is. I know that here in New York there's been a lot of activism amongst particularly the Caribbean women who are domestics. And lately they've been really coming out telling, these stories of what's really happening to them in these households. And I think a movie like The Help is to frame the conversation so that when the words of these women get out there, there's already a framework for it in terms of, this being not a bad thing for these women. But you have situations, here in New York where, again, a lot of Caribbean women are doing this work of housekeeping and nannying, and the abuse is incredible. The abuse from the men, but also the abuse from these white females, and the abuse from the children. Even I've seen this myself on the streets of New York, where a lot of these grown black women are being abused by these little white kids. So I think something like The Help is put out there to. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little tired now. It's put out there to frame the conversation so that when the voice of these women come out in terms of what really is happening in these households comes out, that there would already have been something out there before that. I really was holding on to the line to support Pam in terms of what she was saying in terms of our children. I think we have to be really conscious of the fact that just because we may think a certain way, just because we may think that we're codified or we're nationalist or we're Afrocentric, doesn't mean that that's automatically going to rub off on our children. Raising these children not to be white identified is a very, very conscious, active effort. I can tell you from my own struggle with my children, and fortunately it hasn't been a struggle because, one of the things that I did have access to was Francis Gus Welsing at, an early age. Fighting white identification has to be a conscious struggle. These children are watching, like you said, what we say, what we do, who we compliment, what kind of comments we make to certain images, on the screen as well as within the family. So we have to be conscious about who we allow to teach our children. I know my husband and I, we've spent a lot of money keeping our children out of public school and making sure that they were in environments where, it was basically, here in New York, I guess you would say an Afrocentric environment where, their teachers were black, their surroundings, were black, and teaching black history. It cost us, but it was something that we consciously wanted to do. We didn't want to put our children in an environment where all of their teachers were white, where the kids around them were white. I have that in my own family where, people think if they move out, we're here in New York, so if they move out to Long Island and they're putting these kids in situations where they're the only black kid in the school or, the only one, one of maybe 3 or 4, black children in the school. And, it's been detrimental. It's been very detrimental. So, I really just basically wanted to say that it's a conscious effort in terms of the images you bring into your home, in terms of magazines, papers, who you compliment. I think we were talking about this before with Tater Pie on another program. Not only should you not express, pleasure when somebody in the family brings a white person into the family, you should also be very conscious of how you respond to the product of a white person and, a black person. If your son brings home, someone who is of that, of a white parent versus a young lady who may be darker, of 2 black parents, you have to be very careful how you respond to that because, again, the younger children are watching that.
Mm-hmm. True enough, true. Thank you for the information about the Caribbean domestic workers. I'm looking at an article now, and this one lady said that, this is what she said, it's just a brief paragraph. The mistake I made was in telling my employees that I could cook because after that they would expect 3-course meals every day. My day would start at 6:30 a.m. and not end until 11:30 p.m. when I would still be on my feet cleaning up. And this woman is making, I believe this particular person is making, says a short change by $100 per week. So one other person is working $450 for a 5-day week. So
right, and often, I'm sorry. Wow.
No, I'm just looking at it.
Yeah, oftentimes these women are hired to be the nanny for one child, and then the couple may have another child, and the pay stays the same. There's instances of these white people holding these people's green cards,
right,
and holding them under the threat of reporting them to the INS. It's all kinds of nonsense going on. There's cases where these people are hired to be nannies, and they're ending up having to be nannies and cooks and dog walkers.
Yeah, for lazy white people.
It's and these white women, I hear them on the job. These people think that they're entitled to a nanny, whether they want to pay the person properly or not. They really feel like they're entitled, and if they come up short a particular week, that should be no problem for this worker.
Right.
There's tremendous abuse going on towards these domestic workers. So this whole thing with the help, like you're supposed to be noble in your mistreatment, is ridiculous.
Certainly is. It is also paving the way for what they hope is to come, and that is is putting black people back where they used to be, and having them happy about it, thinking it's a good thing. It's just really something. That's why I try to always remind people, particularly our brothers, that white supremacy has a male and a female face. It's not just a male face. These people are partners in their mistreatment of non-white people. The only thing she cares about is sexism. She doesn't care about racism. She benefits from it. Why would she care about it? So, and also,
we also, with within the community or within our neighborhoods, but within our families, we have to deal with the mind of these domestic workers that are taking this abuse in these homes and what they're bringing back into their own families.
Exactly.
Because it's very hard just to walk away from that and forget about it until the next day. You know, now how you deal with your man and your children is affected by this abuse that you've taken all day from this white female and white male racist.
You know, you had mentioned, too, that, sisters, a lot of these white men are not going to marry them. Let me caution you, even if they do, I've seen the abuse inside of marriages. A lot of black women are in these marriages, and they're still being trashed and abused. I suspect that a lot of these white men are marrying, a certain type of white man will be with the black woman so he can abuse her, so he can practice racism up close. So marriage is not a compliment.
Right.
To a white man, it's not a compliment he's paying you because he marries you. It's still more likely, and I've seen it. It's just you're just gonna be brain trashed. I don't care whether he dates you, marries you, or sexes you. You're gonna be brain trashed at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
There was a person.
In my opinion, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, in my experience, the only type of black woman that a white man would marry is one that is already subject to white supremacy. It's already submitted to it anyway. So.
Before we get to the end, I wanted to get the last caller in. I saw with the hand up. Different person from New York had a question. Different caller from New York. Did you have a question?
Hi, this is hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello? Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Patricia T. I just wanted to back up what Ms. LBM was saying in New York about the Caribbean domestic workers. That is basically a modern form of slavery. My mother worked with a woman from the Caribbean who had a cousin who did that for 5 years. And when it came time for her employers to sign paperwork for her to become a naturalized citizen, no, we don't need her. No, we're not signing the paper. Basically 5 years of free labor.
Yep.
And then she got sent right back home.
Yep.
So we really need to get an understanding of the people that we are dealing with.
Exactly.
And I'll leave it at that.
All right. Good comment. There's a lack of, it's almost like a disease. There's a lack of moral conscience in regard to non-white people. And I think that that's apparent throughout the dealings, throughout the treatment. I mean, so I agree with you. I think it's time for non-white people, black people, to open our eyes and see who we are really dealing with. They have a history that is undeniable. I mean, you don't have to believe me or Gus or anybody. All you got to do is know the history of mistreatment, past and present, and you will see the same thing happening over and over again.
So one more hand. Negrito's Way. Negrito's Way, your line should be open. Did you have a question? Negrito's Way? Oh, wait a minute. All right, let's try it one more time. Negrito's Way, your line should be open.
Oh, yes, Gus. Good evening. I just wanted to confirm that when you're talking about Caribbean domestic workers, the coworker I was talking to you about yesterday that gets a certain some type of white tax credit, she also has a Caribbean domestic worker for her children.
What's a white tax credit?
Yesterday I was telling Gus about a coworker that I guess a conversation I shouldn't have listened to, but she's mentioned that one coworker was trying to get her to live in a neighborhood, and the coworker mentioned that she can get a tax credit because she's white if they live in a certain neighborhood to keep it a certain way. and that's in Stratford, Connecticut.
That's hard to believe. They got all kinds of special programs and benefits for white people that non-white people know nothing about. Unofficial programs, possibly, but white privileges has its privileges.
Pam, are you still with us?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear anything. Okay. I thought I had lost out for a second. Wow. I want to make sure we don't lose the news program for the day. Wow, that is interesting. It looks like the oh, okay. I thought I lost the switchboard for a second. I was like, wow, white people are really on their job. I want to make sure I get in our news report before the program concludes. And then if you want to share any information about the book, the website, or anything you would like folks to think on before we wrap up, I will give you the final word. I just want to make sure we get the news report in really quick. And Justice's blog address, justdojustice.blogspot.com. This is from racismdaily.com. This is from yesterday evening, Saturday, August 20th. This report, the English Defense League member pleads guilty to vandalizing mosque with racist graffiti. A white mother said to be a member of the English Defense League, this is a code for just a blatantly racist group, think like the White Citizens Council in Mississippi. So the English Defense League, the EDL, has admitted her part in an incident which saw white supremacist remarks dabbed on buildings, including a mosque. Charlotte Christina Davies, 19, intends to plead guilty to conspiracy to commit racially aggravated criminal damage, Durham Crown Court heard yesterday. The teenager from Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire was charged after slogans were spray-painted on the Nasir Mosque in Hartlepool and the Albert Guest Mosque in Milko store in Shotton Colliery, County Durham on November 16th of 2010. Ms. Davies sent text messages suggesting people throw pork scratchings, leaving a pig's head, and daub Merry Christmas above a door the day before the beginning of the Muslim festival of Eid, David Crook, prosecuting, told the court. No charges were formally put to Miss Davies yesterday, but Jane Waugh for Miss Davies said her client would be pleading guilty on an agreed basis. That basis would include that whatever she suggested was not carried out, she said. Ms. Waugh asked for the presentence report be compiled on Ms. Davies, a request agreed by Judge John Evans, who adjourned her case to be heard at Durham Crown Court in the week beginning Monday, October 3rd, and granted her unconditional bail until that date. The judge told Ms. Davies, "Your case is now adjourned to the week of October 3rd. It's adjourned for a pre-sentence report, which will be prepared on the basis you intend to plead guilty. The fact that I'm admitting you to bail must not be taken by you as any indication of your sentence." At the time of her arrest, Durham police said Ms. Davies claimed to be a member of the EDL, a far-right protest movement. Didn't say racist, just far-right. I guess a couple things that leaped out at me, and then I'll get Pam's final thoughts. Text messaging, white people coordinating, suggesting criminal white supremacist activity with text messages. Saw this reported a lot during the so-called riots over the past couple of weeks. The other thing, this female, 19, just reminded me. I had heard comments about younger white people not being interested in continuing the business of white supremacy. I don't see any evidence of that at all. The young white people, 25 and down white people, this is indicative of the type of thing I have seen. Sending text messages suggesting that people throw pork scratchings and pigs' heads on the residence property of non-white people. That's pretty typical, trifling behavior that I've seen from racist man, racist woman, you know, all ages, 10, 12, 13, 25, 50, whatever. Same pattern. With that, we will be back. We have a lot of shows that got scheduled today that I just haven't entered because the TalkShoe site is not efficient. So just check the site. There will be about 3 or 4 programs added that will be coming in the next week. So just check the site and I will update them all. Lots of programs, all black people. The Blackout continues. Invest if you think the program is constructive, and I will give the last word to Pam.
Okay, that article was, it's just, like you said, it's just typical of the mentality. And like one caller suggested just recently, just a little while ago, it's time for us to start looking at the people we're dealing with. Stop lying to ourselves. These so-called extremist groups are really just they're just symptomatic of the whole thing. I mean, they speak for a lot of people whose voices are not being heard. Hopefully some of you will visit the website. There's things on there that you don't have to pay to read. Just come on and check us out at TrojanHorse1.com, and hopefully we can all become more informed and more aware, and help other black people become aware, because we can't afford to stay in the state of mind that we're in. We really have got to start looking at the reality that we're facing and the reality that we're dealing with. I would caution us to understand that as the economy is destroyed, it's not an accident. This is happening by design. As the economy is destroyed, white people are going to start showing their tolerance is going to. There never was acceptance. The tolerance is going to start to wear thin, and we're going to be confronted with more obvious racism. So it's time for us to understand how the system works, so we can come up with a game plan.
TrojanHorse1.com. TrojanHorse1.com. Always a pleasure to have you on the program. As I said, one of our favorite guests. Get the books. Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation. Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. We will be back. Replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. And these shirts as well. Very constructive. In fact, Sir Anton, you want to give us the address one more time? Constructive Concepts, the address so folks can get their T-shirts. Black Love is a Revolutionary Act.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
All right. It's www.cafepress.com/constructive concepts. You can grab your Black Love is a Revolutionary Act T-shirt. We also have different shirts on there. Please check it out and support thought-provoking messages and images that need to get out, to our people, Stop wearing polo, stop wearing all Nike, all that. Stop wearing that. That doesn't represent you. Wear something that represents you. Okay? Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Gus, for your time. That's it.
Address again, please, sir.
www.cafepress.com/constructive concepts.
Groovy. Thank you all again. Appreciate it, Pam. Cows signing out.